Day turns to night, and then a phone call of relief.
10 minutes.
We'll be here in 10 minutes.
Yep, he's going to drop them at that.
Nervously waiting at the front of the shopping centre, Judah and Amy meet the men, but first impressions are worrying.
He's hobbling. That's not a good sign.
You think he might be injured?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like they have much luggage, do they?
No, they've just got a backpack.
Wow. The head must be spinning, eh? Yeah, they look weary.
And how did you get out of the compound? How did you leave the company?
So they were asking for money.
Yeah.
So if you didn't pay that day $5,000,
Yeah.
then they would beat us very badly.
Wow.
So since 15 days they were torturing us. 15 days. No food, no water, nothing.
For 15 days.
50 days locked in the room.
You worried about these guys?
Yeah, one of them didn't look too great, so we just need to check him out, make sure he doesn't need immediate medical assistance.
I see your eye. Is that from punching?
Just this poly bag forward like this, and then punch it
10.
like right and left.
So this is now became little light.
United Kingdom to invest their assets, yes, into a cryptocurrency platform.
So this is a photo of where you worked.
Yes, so I'd say there were about 7 different offices from what I could gather.
It might look like an ordinary office, but there's nothing normal about what goes on here. CD gives a chilling account of the disturbing and grim criminal operation focused on stealing money from wealthy victims.
They also try and get to know the customer's profile so that they can know.
You to know I'm really a smart person. And I'm like, oh, I know you're smart, but you are no match for the psychological techniques that are being used against you. They are brainwashing techniques.
You're a professional, Sarah. You're a smart woman. Can you believe it if you got sucked in?
No, actually, still coming to terms with it. It's still very shocking and alarming to think about when I do.
After starting slowly, Sarah handed over $100,000, and Daniel was emerging. When did it start to dawn on you that you might not be able to get any of that money back?
When I tried to log into my account, the account details were invalid. I sent the customer service team the link to the website which I was trying to log into, and there was just one letter which was incorrect. And they identified that as, stop this immediately, this is not us. And that's when I knew that this was definitely a scam of some sort.
What did you think to yourself in that moment about everything that you've been speaking to Daniel about?
It was just an horrendous feeling. I'm almost feeling it now again, speaking about it. I just knew at that moment I'd been done.
We all know Sarah is the victim here, and we also know Daniel, the scammer, is not this man in the photo. But what we've never heard before is that the scammers themselves don't want to do it. They've been tricked, trafficked, and enslaved. If the man who scammed Sarah refused, he would have been beaten, starved, and tortured into submission. Coming up, we'll take you inside the scam factories. In a few short years, scam factories have appeared like weeds in Myanmar, set right along the border with Thailand. Run by powerful transnational criminal networks, they call what they do inside these walls pig butchering. But what most people don't know is that the scammers themselves have been imprisoned and made to scam. If they refuse, they're punished.
Lots of brutality there. There's lots of torture, lots of beatings, and they force them to scam.
So the fact that MCAS was able to be triggered by a single sensor is almost unheard of.
It is absolutely basic in aviation design that no critical system should depend on one thing failing.
Yet Boeing did just that, according to Seattle aviation journalist Dominic Gates. And nobody saw the potential of what could happen if it failed, or some aspect of it failed.
Correct, and that seems like a terrible failing.
How can a system on an airplane take over the plane and not allow the pilot to actually fly the plane? If you have a system that's going to...
A lot of the rules they've always abided by before.
Former Boeing engineer Peter Lemmy in Seattle agrees. For the general public, it is mind-blowing that one faulty sensor could bring down a plane. But that's what happened.
That was the trigger, that was the catalyst for the whole process, yes.
It just took one faulty sensor.
Right.
The Boeing whistleblower, who's working with the FBI, confirmed that making the MCAS flight control system reliant on only one sensor was a deliberate decision. to avoid the need for expensive Level D or flight simulator training.
MCAS was designed using data from only one of the sensors because we knew the FAA would not have certified a two-sensor.
When he was finished, Harry Phipps began blaming her.
He changed. It didn't matter that I was crying or that my uniform was filthy or that my legs were scraped, gravel rashed and things like that, or that I was bleeding. It didn't matter. It was almost like, see what you made me do now? You know, you got my pants dirty. You got my shirt, you got dirt on my shirt.
He said that?
Yeah, because it was all dusty. I was still more concerned about getting home before my dad did.
What did you fear in your father's personality if you had told him?
It was my fault. He would have hit me. He would have hit me, he would have kicked me. He would have said to me, you shouldn't have been there, it's your fault. Don't tell this, don't tell that. Yeah, that's what he would have done.
So you stayed quiet?
I had to.
Linda later sought counselling to cope with the trauma of Harry's attack.
Anyone being a forensic anthropologist who will be there to oversee any elements of human identification. So if any bones show up, for example, that's the expert that will help identify who that is.
But make no mistake, this is a major forensic investigation.
Yes, the South Australia police are very much taking this seriously, so this is a full forensic investigation. They'll be wearing their full personal protective equipment, as you would imagine, at any other crime scene.
Okay, Zephy, thank you for that. And thank you for joining us tonight. You can keep up to date, of course, keep following this breaking story by watching 7 News over the coming days. I'm Michael Lasher. Thanks so much for your company. Have a great night.
Called Little Pebble, and he wants people to believe he's a man of God, but don't. His real name is William Castelia Cam, and he's evil. Back in the 1980s, he set up a doomsday cult, claiming to his followers he could speak to the Virgin Mary. He then spun the lie that God wanted him to have multiple wives so he could repopulate the earth. But this very creepy man's real ambition was to have sex with underage girls. When he was caught, he went to prison for a decade. Now he's out, and there are substantial fears he's up to his old tricks. This is the headquarters of the Order of St. Charbel, just outside Nowra on the New South Wales south coast. It is home to a doomsday cult whose unlikely and strange little leader promises salvation but instead destroys lives. Curious, see if it still all looks the same. For Stephanie Henricks, it was a place of fear, deprivation, and worst of all, repeated sexual abuse. It has been more than 20 years since Stephanie escaped here, and this is her first time back. I knew from the moment I drove in here it wasn't right, it didn't feel right. When you first got here as an 11-year-old, this was meant to be heaven on earth. Is that what you thought it was? No. Initially, when we drove through the gates, I thought, why does God need barbed wire fences? It makes no sense at all. And was the barbed wire to keep people in or keep people out? Both. Keep the cult members in and keep the public out. What the barbed wire can't do is keep Stephanie quiet. She's reliving the horror of her childhood to make this stark warning to save others. Her abuser, William Castelia Cam, remains a terrible danger. He abused you? Yes. From the age of 14, I'll never forget it. So he's a pedophile? Yes. William Cam was sent to jail for the better part of a decade for his sex crimes. Now this rapist, who claims to be a prophet and a pope, and who calls himself Little Pebble, is free, and the alarm bells are ringing. It's easy to dismiss him as ludicrous, but how menacing, how dangerous is he in your opinion?
To me, all child sex offenders are dangerous. Cam's no different. Anyone that can prey on the most vulnerable of our society, we need to be afraid.
He is a liar, a cheat, and a sex offender, pretending to be a man of God. Basically, he used divine guidance as a license to offend. And now, unrepentant and self-righteous, Little Pebble is at it again, hunting young women to rebuild his so-called royal harem. What would you like to see happen to William Cam? I wasn't in prison again forever. Wearing the cloak of a holy man, Cam has been grooming and destroying families for decades. Stephanie was just 8 or 9 when she and her sisters first met the false preacher in her hometown of Munich in the late 80s on one of his world tours. And when you reflect on it, did he target you?
Oh, yes, yes. We weren't a wealthy family, so he took us places and it was like, oh goodness, okay, this man is spoiling us. Eventually, when he came to Germany, he would stay in a little apartment and sleep with my older sister, because at that point she's going to be my wife.
How did he target your mum?
He promised her salvation.
Stephanie's mum Ingrid was totally sold. She allowed her 17-year-old daughter Bettina to marry the then 41-year-old William Cam, before eventually moving the entire family to Australia to join Little Pebble's cult. Back then, she believed the already married Cam was a true prophet. Today, she's too ashamed to show her face. Did it feel right? Did it feel right for your 17-year-old daughter to be married to a man who was already married?
Not afterwards. At this point, we was not able to think very clear. I know that now. We didn't know that then.
Tonight is the first time the Henricks family has spoken out against the evils of this charlatan, to reveal how he very nearly destroyed them all, until brave Stephanie fought back, busted open the cult, and sent Cam to jail.
William arrived at the airport with a minivan, and we drove for 3 hours to Nara, and then into the bush, and I'm like, oh my goodness, where are we going?
It was 1991, and little wonder Stephanie felt overwhelmed. She was just 11, had just flown in from Germany, and spoke little English. But she and her family were about to be reunited with eldest sister Bettina, who had flown to Australia the year before to be with Cam. She was pregnant with his child. Were you in love with him?
I was madly in love with him. I was madly in love with him. He was my world.
As Little Pebble, Cam convinced believers from around the world that each month the Virgin Mary would appear at his holy compound, but she was only visible to him.
I see rockets. Rockets that are flying to the United States and to Australia and to Europe.
Cam claimed, through Mary, God told him to choose 12 queens and 72 princesses.
The Little Pebble really would have 72 princesses and 12 queens?
As William Cam unashamedly told 60 Minutes reporter Jeff McMullen in 1997, his divine duty was to repopulate the earth, after a promised Armageddon was to wipe out mankind.
That's adultery. You're a married man. That'd be right. And it's adultery. It would be adultery in the eyes of the world. God can still suspend the law. And he doesn't suspend the law for Tom, Dick and Harry, as father would say. Never places you. You would yes, because I was asked by God. Okay. One of your many children? Yeah, one of the many children.
What Cam neglected to tell Jeff McMullen or Bettina, who he would go on to have 6 children with, was that his real, warped desire was to marry underage girls. Tragically, Stephanie was one of them. She was just 13 when Cam started his disgusting dance of deceit and sexual pursuit, writing to her in the guise of the Virgin Mary, declaring Stephanie would be his next bride.
I started getting those kind of letters when I was 13. The Virgin Mary's chosen me, and it's very special. It means that I get to live in a castle in Germany, and so at 13 I thought, oh my goodness, I get to be a princess. Yes, I like that.
But the reality was less fairy tale and more menacing. Through the letters, Stephanie was told she would have a child with Cam, but it would not be an immaculate conception, as was first offered. God now wanted her to have sex with her sister's husband.
So I went running to Mum. Help me, I don't want to do this. You have to do this, it's God's will. And I was just beside myself.
When William Cam wanted to marry your other daughter, he started approaching this topic when she was 13. Did you feel that was right?
God, yeah, we just believed too. It came from heaven. We saw it. It came from heaven.
You believe that this was the desire
of heaven, yeah.
Of heaven, not the desire of a man.
Yes, at this point, I believed it was heaven.
Cam's manipulation of the young Stephanie was cruel. He urged her to write to the Virgin Mary to seek advice if she was confused or anxious, in the process unwittingly revealing all her fears and secrets to Cam. Never did you consider it was Cam answering her desperate pleas for help.
Dearest Mother, I'm here today to ask you, if I say no, can I choose my husband, or have you chosen another just in case?
And what does Mother Mary tell you?
My child, if you say no, your life will become very ordinary, like most children in the world. However, you are free.
Were you free?
It was the illusion of it was my choice, but in the end it never was.
That was never more stark than when Stephanie turned 14. Cam brought her to this motel to consummate what he called their mystical marriage.
Yeah, I remember my nerves. I was so shaky, the adrenaline was full on. And I just stayed on the couch that night. He tried to drag me into bed, but yeah, I didn't want to budge.
What happened the second time you got you here?
The second time was the time that I gave in to him.
And why did you give in?
Because the first time I was scolded for not letting him have sex with me. So I was scared to get in trouble again. And just laid in bed after my shower and let him do his business. Turned my head away and cried.
Stephanie was brought here countless times over many years, on some occasions with other girls who were made to wait in a connecting room until they were summoned by the lecherous Canon. For young Stephanie, the abuse at the hands of her sister's husband was too much, as she confessed to the Virgin Mary.
I'm sick of my life. I really am. I'm sorry, but if you don't kill me, if you don't kill me, then I will.
13, 2016. It was close to midnight, and Jenny was at home getting ready for bed when Chinese police burst through her front door.
That's really horrible memory to me.
As Jenny watched on helplessly, a team of 5 police officers ripped apart her apartment, seizing her laptop, phone, and work files.
I feel really panicked. I feel really helpless. I feel really desperate.
Jenny was arrested on the spot and taken into police custody.
I couldn't get any help, but I saw on my colleague, which is that night, and I feel like, well, this is going to be a big issue for us.
In China on alleged gambling crimes.
Jenny was held along with 18 of her colleagues, who also been arraigned that night.
The ground workers, including 3 Australian nationals.
Swept up in the bus with 3 Australians, including one of Crown's top executives, Jason O'Connor, the head of the casino's international VIP program. He was captured by police as he tried to flee China.
Jason, that night when we been arrested, he's trying to leave Shanghai. He got on the plane and they picked up him on the plane.
It was 6 months China.
The Crown arrests sent shockwaves around the world.
There have been reports that it's related to gambling in the casinos, evidently, but beyond that, we don't have any specific details.
Crown feigned surprise. It was not a shock for the company. We've obtained tens of thousands of internal Crown records. A massive leak which reveals that before the raids, Jenny and her colleagues were actually told what to do if Chinese police burst through their doors.
Make sure no company documents, materials are left in the room. Do not, under any circumstances, give any official office badges or pass keys, or grant any official further access to the internal office area, except as permitted by management.
What did Crown tell you before you were arrested? What did Crown tell you to do if you were arrested?
Do not say anything. Do not.
do not cooperate with the government. Crown said if you're arrested, don't cooperate with the Crown government. Do you think Crown secretly knew?
I think they do know about this.
They knew you were breaking the law.
But they just don't tell their staff because they want staff to bring the money over and to keep it working for them.
I'm happy for the Chinese staff to break the law if the money was flowing over.
Yes.
Crown was right to be worried about police seizing its confidential company files. As we've discovered ourselves, Crown's internal data tells an extraordinary story. It reveals just who Crown was getting into bed with, as it lured China's wealthiest people to gamble in Australia. To understand Crown's duplicity, we need to go to Macau. This is the only place in China where you can legally have a bet at a casino. In the rest of the country, it's illegal, as is any promotion of gambling or debt collecting. Crown tried to work around those rules. It not only used its own staff to hook the big whales and bring them to Australia, it hired Macau agents known as junket operators to do its dirty business. These junket middlemen not only find Chinese VIPs to Crown, they lure them to Australia by arranging luxury travel and millions in gambling credit. They also do whatever it takes to collect bad debts.
It is illegal for a mainland Chinese to bring more than very modest amounts of money across the border. What the junkets do is they assist in capital outflow from the mainland. They assist in the identification of punters. They facilitate the travel and their arrival. And then there's one other issue. It's illegal to collect debts, so it's common sense. You're not going to send the Boy Scouts around to collect debts.
And here is where it gets even richer. Says many junket operators are controlled by secretive and dangerous organised crime gangs known as triads.
The triads are complex. I understand what they are.
What is the risk that Crown takes on when it gets into bed with junkets?
The risk is that they may have taken on unfortunate business associates, so the answer is to focus on Australia and the Asian aid to understand who you're doing business with.
You aren't keen to name individual junkets.
I think one needs to be very careful. Being a triad member is a huge opportunity. These people are well funded, some of them are quite dangerous.
If you would have,
well, I'm judicious in my comments. I've taken triads on for many times for many years, but I'm also not suicidal at this stage.
Macau is an operating hub for the triads. It's here they run certain junkets, the businesses that lure the big gamblers, the whales, the casinos, and collect their debts when things go bad. For years, Australian policing agencies have watched Asian crime bosses wash their dirty money through certain junkets. But then things changed. Some of those same junkets began operating in Australia.
There's no way the cops if you want to try and follow.
Roman Quadrilateral spent decades targeting international money laundering and organised crime rings. Not only was he in charge of border force, before that he was an assistant commissioner with the Australian Federal Police. In 2006, he led a clandestine mission to this region. Why so many Australian police organised crime investigations ending up here?
This is where the prize are, where the crime is, where the drugs are, and ultimately close that loop.
His target was a triad known as the Company, which remains the most powerful drug trafficking syndicate in the world. For more than 10 years, it's been shipping billions of dollars worth of ice and cocaine into Australia. Its biggest problem has always been getting the dirty cash back to China. But in the Crown Casino, triad bosses found the ideal solution.
Casinos are cash-intensive operations, no transactions, and they are soft touch for money laundering.
How perfect a system is that for a group of companies?
Having a channel like casinos in the interest of the public operators allows the money to be repatriated without the country actually physically moved. It's a perfect system of moving money without actually physically moving it.
Breaking bad, fabricated and human trafficking, brothels, drugs, and dirty money. Bundle cash and Crown's deep not organised crime. And how they get Australia's national security is under Transcom's high influence is something that we're only just beginning to understand.
What we see here is the end of a drug trafficking syndicate. So the property screen there, you'll see a man coming down with a green white plastic shopping bag. That contains $191,000 in dirty cash, which has been derived from drug trafficking activities.
It's May 2012. Green Water in suburban Melbourne, an international money laundering operation is underway.
It's just off screen, awaiting the arrival of Roy Moon, a member of the syndicate who is used to transact money from the Crown Casino.
This man, Roy Moon, is a licensed junket operator at Crown Casino, which pays him to lure Asian VIP gamblers to its high roller room. But on this day, he's both a Crown junket operator and a money launderer, because he also works for a powerful triad syndicate called the Company.
You'll see that the shopping bag has changed hands into Roy Moon's possession.
The Company is paying him.
From that location, Roy appears at Crown Casino.
His task, to funnel drug money to Hong Kong via Crown Casino's bank accounts. It's bundles of cash coming out of a plastic bag.
I look at this and there are neon lights flashing. To me, this is very, very clearly a money laundering activity.
Former AFP Assistant Commissioner Roman Quadrilateral says Crown Casino has long been a soft target for money laundering. Roy Moon, the man handing money overseas, the reason he can go to the bank because Crown Casino was far easier and far fewer questions asked. What does that tell us about Crown's
Well, look, it's far simpler. In this environment where Roy Moon has an account with Crown, there is money awash through Crown Casino. This is a relatively small amount in the context of with Crown.
This is a drop in the ocean when it comes to the likely process of crime, drug trafficking, and other crime being washed through Crown.
Yes, Nick, in reality, we're talking of hundreds of millions, billions of dollars of dirty money that gets laundered every year through entities like Crown.
At this point, you might be asking yourself, why should Crown Casino be blamed for the actions of a single rogue junket operator? But this case isn't a one-off. Our investigation has uncovered Crown junket after Crown junket with underworld ties, and suggests Crown was either willfully blind or recklessly indifferent.
A number of the entities that Crown Casino dealing with are very clearly linked to transnational crime entities and syndicates.
It might be well justified in saying, hang on, we're a casino, we're the cops. How on earth are we meant to know so-and-so is a triad? They're not a vehicle.
Crown is a casino operator. It is a proxy financial services entity. But when you look at this profile of the individuals that Crown is dealing with and the exposure that it has to some of the criminality and money laundering activity we talked about, in my view, that obligates Crown to have high levels of due diligence.
Crown's so-called due diligence is barely evident in its confidential company files. Instead, they revealed how Crown bent over backwards to work with Macau's peace and operator, Sun City. Sun City key personalities have demonstrated links to numerous triad societies and organised crime figures. In a secret report obtained by us, one of the world's largest bookmakers, the Hong Kong Jockey Club, reveals its own deep mistrust of Sun City, which has always denied any wrongdoing. Intelligence sources advise that are of interest to the Australian authorities in relation to money laundering activities. For these reasons, the Hong Kong Jockey Club has black banned Sun City. In contrast, Crown Casino has rolled out the red carpet, paying Sun City tens of millions of dollars, flying its VIP gamblers to Australia on private jets, helping Sun City get visas for them, and providing the junket with its very own high roller room at Crown Melbourne. They would know the background of the general operators. And what happens when one of your head jacket partners is exposed to the secret? Then you need to remove that person from the list of partners fairly quickly. The revelation that Crown is working with tribe-connected junkets doesn't exactly shock gaming analyst Ben Lee. If Crown cares, the junket operators are wanted criminals, not organised crime figures. Crown has also jumped into bed with the Melbourne brothel boss with links to alleged sex trafficking. As well as running this prostitution business, Simon Tan is also one of Crown's junket operators. Just a straight throw from Crown Casino. There's number 39 Simon Tan. Court files reveal he runs a notorious prostitution business, repeatedly investigated by the federal police, which has been implicated in organised crime and the suspected trafficking of women in Malaysia.
It's extremely disturbing that the casino would have a contractual relationship with someone implicated in human trafficking.
Anti-trafficking advocate Courtney Keefe says a simple Google search reveals federal police were forced to rescue trafficked women from Tan's brothel. She says it beggars belief that Crown wouldn't know about Simon Tan. A lot is going on inside its four walls.
There's been more than one AFP raid, resulting in the rescue of at least 4 women, and this is not publicly available, and it has all the hallmarks of a human trafficking situation.
But Simon Tan is small fry compared to Crown's most dubious business partner, an international criminal fugitive and Chinese Communist Party aligned figure. Meet the man they call Mr. Chinatown. He's been Crown's most lucrative Melbourne junket operator, and he's responsible for enticing China's biggest whales to Melbourne and Perth to drop millions of dollars on Crown's high roller table. It's an arrangement that's made both him and the casino filthy rich. What do you know about Mr. Chinatown? I heard that he was the single biggest junket operator in Australia. This is Mr. Chinatown's $15 million mansion in Toorak, an affluent inner-city suburb of Melbourne. And this is a spectacular country estate, a property where he takes some of Crown's highest rollers, offering them the chance to shoot guns and hunt animals. To find out more, we went undercover, answering an advertisement for a hunting tour. The whole hunting setup here is illegal. Yeah, you can, actually. But then Mr. Chinatown doesn't care much for the law. So, the mysterious Mr. Chinatown. His real name is Tom Zhao. We've uncovered multiple Chinese court cases which suggest a dark past. He's been investigated by Chinese authorities for serious financial crime and fled to Australia before he faced justice. He's also been accused in court cases of extortion and standover tactics, and even of arranging for acid to be thrown in a man's face. He's always denied any wrongdoing. In Australia, he works with Crown Casino, as well as several organisations closely aligned with the Chinese Communist Party. Trotsky is a Chinese scholar at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. His investigation shows that Mr. Chinatown heads multiple organisations in Melbourne linked to Chinese Communist Party activism. These groups work to influence the local Chinese community and the Australian political system. This underground Chinese Communist Party influence is something that we're only just beginning to understand. Last year, the federal government passed laws to try to stop this Chinese government interference. But Trotsky says Mr. Chinatown's groups still operate in secrecy. He'd be able to build political influence, build networks with politicians, and then quite possibly send that information back to Beijing. Through his influence, he'd also be able to bring large amounts of cash to borders and also help bring personnel from China to Australia. Do you think that casino should be doing business with junket operators with Communist Party influence tactics in Australia? All this for Crown Casinos is that it's unwittingly becoming a conduit or a facilitator in some genuinely pernicious, possibly illegal activities. He has been sued around, and he doesn't care. The high-stakes discovery was our police found on a private jet. The fact that the President's cousin and Crown's subject, Mr. Chinatown, were on a private jet was politically explosive, and need an Aussie visa? Just call Crown. How many people did Crown help get visas to come to Australia? In 2 or 3 minutes? On Winter's Day in 2016, a private jet idles on the runway at Coolgate Airport. Australian federal police officers think the plane might be smuggling dirty cash. They've received
this operation because they're such important political and social hubs here in Taiwan. His ultimate aim was to undermine the Taiwanese president because she was considered hostile by Beijing.
The world woke up to the reality of election modelling when Russia was exposed for interfering in the 2016 US election.
They use sophisticated cyber techniques to hack into computers and networks used by the Clinton campaign.
It's eerily similar to what's now playing out in Taiwan. Deputy Foreign Minister Su Chen-shu is convinced his country's system is under cyber attack from Beijing. But his government has never been able to prove it.
Are you concerned?
Absolutely, yes. We are greatly concerned about this. Why should the international community care about what is going on in Taiwan? Taiwan is in fallout. So it's not only an issue between China, Communist China and Taiwan. It's an issue between two political camps in the world. So what's happening in Taiwan today is a good example for what will happen in other parts of the world, and I think all democratic countries should pay attention to what's going on.
Democracy here is hard-won and fiercely protected. At this rally, political factions fight it out in a passionate but at times overzealous display of freedom of speech and political expression.
Taiwan's democracy looks healthy, it's under attack, and he should know. One of his key missions was to back the presidential candidate appearing here tonight by secretly meddling in the elections.
This is presidential candidate Han Kuo-yu.
Moo.
He's preferred by
Sorry, I
Beijing
didn't mean to come so late. We ended up watching 2 episodes.
ensure his safety and survival, he must constantly move between cities and countries. Miss Sosa, I really should beat you to death. But staying in the shadows doesn't stop the almost daily death threats, which Bardi is certain come from China. Anyone who offends China will be killed no matter how far the target is.
Yeah, so no matter how far you are in Australia, American, Europe, if you are a fan China, then you'll be killed.
You will be killed.
With its very long arm. Yes.
This week, that long arm reached into Poland, with officials from the Chinese embassy in Warsaw demanding Bardi's latest art exhibition be closed down. The gallery operators refused to be intimidated. How is it that China, with all its power, can be so wounded by someone like you?
It's this insecure feeling among all dictators. They have turned themselves into this control freak. They cannot trust anyone.
So even if it's one voice, even if it's one individual, they will crack down on them like they're at war with them, at war with you.
Exactly.
And that war has been stepped up to an audacious and terrifying new height, with the discovery of a secret Chinese police force operating throughout the world.
It is almost unthinkable, and it's definitely designed to be monitoring, harassing, and creating some kind of intimidation against anyone who want to criticize the Chinese government.
21-year-old Wang Jingyu, who lives in the Netherlands, has first-hand experience of this secret force intent on flexing its muscle anywhere, anytime. He fled China 4 years ago after posting his support for Hong Kong democracy. Operating out of Rotterdam, the overseas police station tracked down the young dissident to repeatedly harass him.
Every day, the Chinese overseas police stations make over 100 times phone calls to me.
Jingyu says he was bombarded by calls, one after the other, and all through the night, to pressure him to return to China.
They ask me, go to Rotterdam, the Chinese overseas police station, surrender, talk to them, and go back to China because I refused.
What would happen to you if you return to China?
If I return to China, I think probably I will go in prison. Yeah, it's very terrible.
But how did you react when you heard that there was a police station in Rotterdam that was Chinese?
So I feel very terrible. I'm so scared that we can do anything. We are not safe. Yeah.
Back in China in 2021, Jingyu's parents were taken into custody to pay for the crimes of their son, and as a brutal bargaining chip to ensure Jingyu's return. How long were your parents detained for?
It's over 1 year. Yeah, over 1 year.
And are they safe now?
Actually, I don't know. I don't know anything about my parents. To be honestly, I don't know where is my parents.
Are you ever tempted to be silent to make your life easier?
No, I will not. Because, if I accept this, I just, stop talking. And the Chinese authority will think this plan is work. And they will use this plan to attack.
Gregory says Wang's public defection now places his life and that of his family back in mainland China in grave danger.
I really feel that the incredible torment that he's now facing, and he clearly has incredible respect for his family, there's no question about that. But he sees this what he's doing this thing even more important, because it's got something that affects future generations.
Condemned to a life under threat, Wang says he hopes his revelations will inspire those fighting for freedom of speech and democracy in the face of oppression from Beijing. He also wants Australia, his potential new home, to understand the Chinese Communist Party doesn't respect our sovereignty as it tries to grow its power.
Are you worried you could be brought out yet in Australia? I am very worried about my safety in Australia. More importantly, my family, my wife and child. They knew nothing about this. Now they know. They are extremely frightened. If I am got out, my family will be destroyed. I don't know what future my child will have.
Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9 Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content. It's well known China won't stand for any criticism. Their opponents of the communist regime are simply not tolerated. But it seems Beijing now thinks it also has the right to ignore international borders and silence dissent anywhere it sees fit. Around the world, it's setting up illegal outposts called Chinese Overseas Police Service Stations. And as the name suggests, their objectives are clear. Our law enforcement agencies deny there are any of the stations here, even though Chinese authorities publicise their existence. But either way, that's not the end of the intimidation. Australians are also being targeted in other bizarre ways for daring to speak out about China.
That's that. Okay.
The worst thing Andrew Phelan has ever done is accumulate a few minor speeding tickets. Taking care of his frail and elderly mum keeps him well and truly on the straight and narrow.
We're sitting in Australia and the blind is down and I saw footsteps coming.
So when on Australia Day this year, he was suddenly arrested at his mother's home, he was in deep shock. Did you think it was a joke? Did you feel like it was very serious?
Four armed police with my clothes with an arrest warrant reading out what was very serious criminal offences. So it was certainly no joke. And I think that's right. China's been very good at fighting against us.
Andrew, a television commentator and film critic of the Chinese Communist Party, was taken to his local police station.
Anyone else know that?
He was accused of sending a false email threatening to rape and kill a Chinese Australian journalist. Hearing the extraordinary charges against him, Andrew had no idea what was going on.
Threatening to kill, threatening to cause serious injury, committing a sexual act, and or stalking. Yeah, that was the charge.
In that moment, what was that like?
Surreal. Incredibly confusing. It was horrible. I really didn't know what was happening.
It was during this police interview that Andrew heard for the first time the vile words he was accused of writing and sending in the email.
Bring it back to bitch. If you don't, I'm going to come find you. And be like, I'm not going. At least then you'll regret and call out the shit. I would never, ever in a month of Sundays use that kind of language to a woman or anybody else. Yeah, you've got it now. Cool. Now, I mean, I've just been hearing it again.
What makes you angry about that?
But this is done in the shadows, anonymously.
And he's in no doubt who's responsible.
I believe that this has been done under the auspices of the MSS, Ministry of Security. I believe they're targeting Westerners that have been critical of basically in the public sphere. To make that critical, as it's clear, somebody's created a fake email address, sent an abuse of email.
After making the question, the police said that Andrew did not feel the email. The message certainly did not come from his email address and he was not charged. But Andrew's terrible experience is not unique. One of the academic Kevin Jericho was did you expect to be watched, targeted, followed, illustrated? Did you expect it to happen here?
No, I was not prepared for it. Once the ongoing harassment, sending horrendous messages to random people.
Like Andrew, a sexually offensive email was recently sent in his name to a Chinese journalist in the UK. Ongoing punishment, Kevin assumes, for daring to write 2 books critical of the Chinese Communist Party.
It says, how is the BJ white folk going? BJ here, of course, refers to oral sex.
Kevin took a more direct hit when another fake email was sent to nearly 70 people in his department saying he quit. If the intent was to cause confusion and inconvenience, it worked.
Whoever was doing this has set up an email account in my name and sent a false resignation letter to my entire school. This is quite a bit of effort for a supposed superpower to go to harass a lowly lecturer in Melbourne.
That harassment is increasingly aimed at Australians. It seems it doesn't matter who you are. If you dare to criticise, prepare for payback from China. And no matter how blunt or brutal, they'll do anything to disrupt your life. At the ripe old age of 24, human rights activist Drew Pavlou is a veteran at attracting the attention of Chinese authorities, even on home soil.
I was annoyed a lot with my protest. I argue that's my right as an Australian citizen, and I knew that would make me a target, but I didn't realise that they were going to try to bomb me. I didn't realise that they were going to have me arrested as a terror suspect.
Last year, Drew was arrested protesting outside the Chinese embassy in London after it's alleged the regime made a false bomb threat in his name. Until it was established Drew had not made that threat, he faced 12 years in jail.
The police said, we received an email with your name, and I just stood there stunned like a stunned mullet. We do not get worried about lawful things. However, in China, for example, if you talk about Taiwan independence, it's a crime.
China's former Foreign Affairs diplomat Victor Gao is frighteningly clear. Anyone who criticises Beijing over its treatment of minorities or argues for independence, be warned. So if you are a dissident or an activist or a protester in Australia making those claims about Tibet, Taiwan, the Uyghurs, are you safe or are you unsafe?
That's a violation of the one-China policy.
And so what happens to them?
They will be very much looked at. The way in which Bruno Lose revived his career in the 1950s was just extraordinary. But his greatest accomplishment, I think one could say, was the relationship he forged with the Wildenstein family. And this was a relationship that extended for over 50 years.
The Wildensteins are probably the most important art-dealing family or art-dealing dynasty in the world.
The patriarch of the family, George Wildenstein, fled Paris after the German invasion in 1948 and came to New York. They played an incredibly important role in the growth and development of American museums. The National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. has 81 pictures from the Wildensteins, and the Met has 44 galleries where at least one painting in each gallery was focused from the Wildensteins.
Wildensteins, as far as I understand, are in the category of billionaires. Ones who have reached a level where they can breed racehorses and own a farm in Kenya and God knows what else they have.
You have this strange relation between Loza, an independent small art dealer, and the old powerful industry. But if you do any business in the art world, you will need the business. There's no supply. More supply means that more supply on the side of the looters. And the looters have been, the collections have been severely looted, in wartime. So you may see, the Jewish victims, that have been looted, and the looters, and how come that they even in a thick of the meeting?
The Wildensteins have denied working with Loza and for the family, for this French-American Jewish family. It's very uncomfortable, to say the least. We have a letter from Alec Wildenstein saying he's known Loza for over 60 years. Evidence is incontrovertible. But Loza was an information broker. He had connections in the networks of Nazi dealers that would be useful to the Wildensteins. They would use an agent like Loza to operate in Germany and Switzerland and other parts of the world as well.
It was a very complex and cutthroat business, and the more knowledge you had, the more power you had.
The relationship between Loza and the Wildensteins follows a pattern. The family has remained very secretive. There's a code of silence of omerta, and it's this secrecy and the fact that they're so powerful that invite speculation and suspicion. Back in 1965, there were allegations that the Wildensteins falsified information in catalog raisonnaires. The published art historian Douglas Cooper made these allegations about a Gauguin catalog, that the provenance, the ownership history of a painting. Those accusations have been made subsequently, right, that the Wildensteins are not straightforward in these catalogs. And in 2011, there was a police raid on the Wildenstein, but also Walter Hofer, the rival of Loza, Carl Haberstein, who had helped expropriate part of the family on Spencer, who gave him the raids on Loza, This is quite a list here. I'm sure these clients. It always ends up being a small world. We were calling him, and he asked, could I come to survey? He had learned that Frederick Schmidt had had several children who created this foundation of heirs that controlled the Fisher's Sorrow, and that they, at a first step, were prepared to let me examine the picture. I thought this was extraordinary. We could see this looted artwork had been missing for half a century. We were told that the picture was brought from Liechtenstein to the bank and preserved by one of the heirs that day, and that it was just going to stay there in the bank for one day for my inspection. Here we are in Europe, only 25th of January 2007. I am meeting with the paper who inspects the meeting. And he told me that we were going to have something in the conference room. And there, sitting there, there's the Fisher's Sorrow. So this is das Bild. Also ich habe es gesehen, daneben, da war's. Kam es ganz schön. It was magnificent. It had this cool logo to it. It's a very special picture. And for this Jewish artist, other players who want to see the picture. It was painted in 1901 for the outburst of anti-Semitism in Paris. And so he returned upstairs to see their spaces. And this picture was from the room that she died. We were with assuring me that the heirs were cooperative, they're prepared to take restitution. And so the beginnings of a settlement with the first she had a dental appointment, and after her dentist wanted to pick it up and take it back to Liechtenstein. After I had inspected the Fisher's Sorrow and we had seen the picture agreement, things began to unravel. The foundation that controlled the Fisher's Sorrow wanted 5% of the value of the picture. They were going to return it, and Gisela Fisher found that objectionable. And so she asked me to go meet with the representative of the foundation. So we were like, but I got a sense that things might not be so straightforward. We were speaking about ourselves, and he was speaking about surveillance that was being moved forward. And in fact, he said that these measures seemed dodgy. The headquarters of the foundation was truly unremarkable. You can see it's really tucked away. And we walked down some steps, and as I approached the door, I saw a glass platform, and for the first time I saw the name Schönhardt, and I recall thinking to myself, Frederick Schönhardt, that makes sense, that's the name of the foundation. So we came in and met the two lawyers, and they did and we proceeded to talk. They were professional, and they were polished, and so in my alarm bells don't go off. A little bit later, an elderly lady arrived. She was the president of the foundation, Millie Sully-Boyd. Greenberg and Millie Sully-Boyd had this tradition that he would bring Bavarian sausage by horseback, and she would give them a Swiss sausage. She was a character, but she seemed quite credible. She maintained to me that the foundation was controlled by Frederick Schönhardt's children. I felt that we were making progress and that I was helping restitute this picture. And I felt satisfaction that I was advancing the process. At the end of our meeting, Peter Greenberg did something that surprised me. He reached into his briefcase and he pulled out 2 dossiers, and he handed them to the attorneys and said, here are 2 pictures, one by Monet and one by August Renoir. Does the foundation have these pictures? Peter said, yes, we have these pictures.
He said that she wanted to run away. Jody told her that she had no idea what was waiting for her if she did. Then she talks about how her and Jody, or Gigi, as she calls her throughout the journal, were planning on moving to the desert where the kids could, quote, work. She said that before moving, she would let Gigi come and sit in the pantry, and she would have Art sit on the patio in the shade. Then, right when they would think that they got what they wanted and they'd start to relax, she would write, quote, Art, we will drop them like hot potatoes out in the desert. She also wrote about the day that she completely shaved.
Oh my goodness.
He had been walking up and down the stairs, and at one point she slipped. Ruby thought she was nervous, so she put her in the dog wash. She shaved her head, and then she made her go back to carrying the boxes.
And started messing with ITC devices and phone apps.
Can you talk to people that have passed away already? This is not sponsored. There's a guy that's doing it. He's on YouTube. His name is Steve Hunt. Look him up. It's insanely cool. Also, there's an app that will let you do it. It's called Necrophonic, and it works. You have to have respect and focus.
I think that she was probably doing readings by the sounds of it. Like, she's doing astrology, numerology, things like that. Like, that is clear in her past videos there. With all of this being said, I did also see that she was on Montel Williams and talked to Sylvia Brown, and Sylvia Brown, like, confirmed her gifts and whatever. We already know about Sylvia Brown. I've done an expose on her as well. So I'll play you a little bit of the clip of her explaining what happened on Sylvia Brown.
So about 14 years ago, I was on a talk show called Montel Williams Show. Oh my gosh, look, there's me. And yes, I was about 120 pounds heavier. It's the Crohn's that goes away.
I just want to make a quick comment here. One, she's really obsessed with, like, this being skinny thing and, like, showing how skinny she is and how she loses weight. I think, like, she's got to calm down on that. Feel better about yourself. Two, telling people that Crohn's goes away is, like, I just hate medical misinformation like that. Because, like, I have my own illnesses and people will be like, oh, you know, you can cure that with diet, or you can cure this. It's just, I hate people spreading medical misinformation. Crohn's doesn't go away. There's no cure for it. Like, you can probably eat a little bit differently and, like, have a better quality of life. Personally, when I meet someone who says that they've cured an incurable illness with whatever thing, diet, blah, 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 that just makes me think they were misdiagnosed in the first place. And I think that's what happened. Sorry, I just had to make this, like, side comment.
I actually wrote into a show one night randomly, talking about how I had childhood cancer, talking about how I have all this mediumship abilities and I don't know what it is, and I just needed help. Guess what? I got on that show, and the Sylvia Brown read me.
And did you not feel like you saw him or you sensed him?
I felt like there was something around.
So, the biggest thing to remember here, too, Amy has an IMDb. People have to go out of their way to make an IMDb, and they usually make an IMDb to get more work within the industry. So, I take this stuff with a grain of salt, because a lot of people who go on these talk shows, I have some friends, they went on Jerry Springer, they went on different shows like that because they were trying to build an acting career. And they went on the talk shows to add to their resume. I know a bunch of people who have done this, alright? So I don't really take it too seriously. Sylvia, God, there's so many problems with her. I made a video about her. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it, of course. So anyway, that's all this information about, like, are you a medium? You're telling people that there is no life, and then you're saying, yeah, there is stuff after. Her messaging is all over the place. I think a lot of this misinformation and bouncing all over the place is weird when her main bio story about, like, how she has these abilities is so rehearsed over and over again, and yet we're finding her, like, slipping up in all these other areas. I think that's something.
Offering me a reading for $5 or $10. So they kind of do that on TikTok until they catch a big break and make it big. Not all of them do make it big, but some of them do. Once famous, they can charge an arm and a leg, like today's psychic, Amy Gillespie. Now, let me say, this is not towards a specific psychic, more it's towards all these TikTok psychics. I assume it's a TikTok virus, maybe it attracts these kind of people, or maybe just turns them into this, but these psychics are,
She wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts.
Which means what? Yeah, like major pick-me energy I've noticed in looking at these psychics. She's not the first one, there's a bunch I've been looking at. And they have major main characters that are going on too.
She's the queen bee. Let's stop.
So if you notice me getting, like, a little catty sometimes when I cover these kind of people, here's my Canadian I'm sorry ahead of time. Alright? For example, for today, let me just read you off an initial top hits list I made for Amy. She gets involved in criminal cases, puts pressure on families who are currently grieving to do a reading. This also leads to some blood chasing. She does information collecting before readings, so the classic Carlo tricks. She also does ITC readings, and she changes the story of the deceased, trying to insert misinformation on active criminal cases. She also disrespects the dead. She accepted a challenge to prove that she was truly psychic, and then backed out of the closet. And that's also our special guest today, is mentalist Dustin Dean, who has a challenge for TikTok psychics. One more thing, a disclaimer. Everything I'm going to cover is all publicly available information about a public figure and is protected under fair use, free speech, or similar laws of each country. I'm providing commentary, and anything that is not confirmed fact is either something gathered to the best of my ability through public means, or is my personal opinion. In my research so far, it's come to my attention that Amy, some people have said that she is possibly litigious, or she works with people that are litigious. Some people may have also lost TikTok accounts, which we're going to get into. I fully expect an army of haters to be in the comments of this video, and that's pretty normal for all my psychic videos. So for those who actually watch the content to hear, like, what the issues are, and don't just click on the video to comment without watching it, today's secret question is, we do this for all of our psychic videos, what is your
favorite face. Leave a comment below and let me know. So what we're going to do for this is I'm going to try to leave my face bigger on the screen than the video, like try not to have the video take up too much space, so it's even more transformed content that falls under fair use, right? Essentially, I've already pre-recorded my thoughts and like I already did some analysis and stuff, but it wasn't on video. If you're wondering what's happening here, it's just, I'm just trying to cover off more fair use. I do record like different things in my thoughts when I'm like collecting things on people, and that's why sometimes you'll see me add stuff to a video that's just like me talking over something, and it's because I kind of record stuff as I go. So I don't record everything all in one sitting, so bear with me, all right? All right, that's enough of the introduction. So from cold readings to hot takes, let's get to the bottom of Amy Gillespie. Amy's biography and holes in her story. So as always, I work through a person's biography, and I tend to work through information chronologically. So what I prepared here is a mixture from her website, a few interviews I looked at, and her TikTok, which I spent hours scrolling through just to try to figure out a timeline of events. Okay, just a quick note. 1, the TikTok app and on my desktop is really annoying and constantly bugging out. So 2, I have recordings and clips of things I want to show you in Amy's channel all throughout this video. The audio is going to be horrible. You're just going to have to deal with it. It's best I could do recording it off my phone. It was a huge pain because everything kept crashing. So bear with me on all these clips. And full disclosure here, obviously, I'm not an Amy stan. I don't attend her lives. I don't watch her stuff, other than the stuff that happens across my feed sometimes. And the few things that have crossed my feed, I found very disturbing. That being said, I may get a timeline not quite right, or I may be missing some information as wasn't easily accessible. So bear with me on the info here. All right, so Amy's career began in 1995 when she was 5 years old. Amy goes on to say she was diagnosed with Wilms tumor, a battle that ultimately led to the loss of her kidney. Wilms tumor is, for anyone curious, is a malignant cancerous tumor originating in the cells of the kidney. It's the most common type of renal kidney cancer and accounts for about 6% of all childhood cancers. It was because of this tumor that she experienced the first near death encounter. She says she doesn't remember any of the details of it though. She just knows that she apparently died for a moment. Honestly, I couldn't find specifics on this, like how long was she gone for? Was it on an operating table? Like what happened? She doesn't remember it either. So I don't know, there's a story from like when I was 4 and I got really sick and there was something bad happened too, but I don't remember any of it. I don't remember being sick or nothing. Like that's really young. I don't remember being in the hospital. I barely remember anything from the age of 5 either, to be honest. Anyways, she says that she just remembers waking up with more compassion and empathy. In my opinion, this part seems very scripted. This is normal childhood development. Some kids begin showing empathy for others as early as 3, but most studies say it's usually between the age of 4 and 5. And between 6 and 9, most kids are able to put themselves in another person's shoes. So it's just odd that she'd be able at age 5 to compare her empathy going into the hospital and coming out of it. So again, I just want to point out she was experiencing normal childhood development. It wasn't anything miraculous, as she tries to point out. Let me read you one of her quotes. I became obsessed with not toys, but history, art, and music. Life was an amazing adventure on a gauntlet of challenges to me. She was 5, guys. Yeah, okay. It's not challenging at 5. Guys, I noticed at this point, me preparing these talking points for this video, I feel like really catty towards Amy, and I've been doing like too many of these like exposés, I think, and also just other stuff I see on her TikTok that I'm just like, there's just something really bugging me about her. But I think it's not just her. Again, I think it's all the TikTok sidekicks, because I've noticed that all of them. It's just this weird personality that TikTok has. It's very like main character, I'm the most special thing in the world kind of energy.
Yes, I'm still, but that doesn't mean I was never part of the thing beautiful. Good enough reasons to have a tight gown. It looks pretty cool. Everyone was so like, why hello, did you know women get dressed in the front of the wedding morning they do their man? It's Virginia. And we just want to know how we feel better. I'm a little tipsy. So all these kids on here, they're like, I have money to show parents money. All the people that are hating on me. Opinions are like, folks, everybody has them. And they're not that important. Hopefully your parents love you. Somebody needs to.
Anyway, Amy then said she began talking to her grandfather who passed before she was born. She told her mother about his visits, and essentially her mother supported her and didn't push back and saying, yeah, sure, you're talking to your dad, why not? To be honest, and sorry, I'm going to keep interjecting on this timeline here because I have a lot of comments. If I almost lost a child, I would also play along too. Who would yell at their ill child over talking about their deceased grandfather? Like, it's not a huge deal. I don't think your parent would really correct you. Amy then goes on to say that she would read people randomly at the store, and her teachers, they would look at her amazed, but she just thought it was, quote, normal. It's really weird the way she has that worded. By 2007, Amy was in high school. She said she would read her friends as well, make prophecies to people about things that were going to happen. She says that she was always the person that people came to for advice. And this is how she words these things, guys. In her early 20s, she began working in sales and goes on to say that her medium ability helped her achieve a lot. She also would do readings for clients from her sales position. So essentially, doing readings on the side. Not a huge deal. She says that this stage in her life, though, brought her gift to her attention for the first time, which is just like, did she read her bio? Like, this is...
Art fled and before the arrest happened. So I couldn't help but think about how if Art hadn't escaped that day, they likely would have moved to Arizona, maybe even on 500 acres. And like I said earlier, it was out in my mind that we would have had another Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell situation on our hands. The journal entries were essentially just one sick confession after another. Then I started thinking about Kevin freaking out about this. Remember he freaked out and wanted to charge her with burglary when he took all that stuff from the house? What was in those journals? Was it more confessions? Did they show a timeline of things beginning to escalate over time? Was he worried that if the police read them, then he would be implicated and be in trouble as well? I mean, again, in that moment, your first instinct as a parent should be your children's well-being. So you shouldn't be trying to charge your daughter with burglary for trying to help her siblings. You should be the one trying to help your own children, my man. Like, give me a break. Which kind of just cements my other point, because in one of Kevin's very first interviews, when he was first told that his kids had been rescued and that they had wounds that were aligned with before even asking how the children were, he asked about Ruby. He was more concerned with his wife after hearing, literally point blank, that his one son had run away, that he was asking for help, that he was malnourished, that he was emaciated, all of these things, and his concern was Ruby. Which, it really makes you ask the question, how much did Kevin really know was going on? Because that definitely doesn't seem in line with the statement of a parent who was in shock and hearing those allegations for the first time. So Jody and Ruby were sentenced to their 4 counts of aggravated child abuse in February of 2024. Okay, let's talk about this, because honestly, it is something I struggle with. I have talked about that for well over a year now. Whether it's tossing and turning, waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to fall back to sleep, or just feeling completely exhausted, even after 8 hours. And I know that I'm not alone in this. I'm somebody where if I wake up in the middle of the night, it is game over. I'm staring at my ceiling, I'm thinking about my whole to-do list for the next day, and I'm never getting back to sleep. But that's why I'm so excited to talk about Beans Green Powder. It's science-backed healthy hot cocoa for sleep. And this product has single-handedly changed the way I sleep for the better. That is why I talk to you guys about it all the time, because I could not even believe that product more than this. And I've tried a lot of sleep before, but they usually leave you feeling bad the next day, low energy, sluggish, which is not ideal. But Bean is totally different. Other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess, but Bean contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, aspartame, and melatonin, all to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. And the best part is it is delicious. They have flavors like sea salt caramel, brownie batter, vanilla chai, and of course the OG cinnamon cocoa, all totally guilt-free guilt-free. It is 0 grams of sugar. It is 15 calories. It literally tastes like hot chocolate. I am obsessed.
God, I swear.
Winding down at night and wake up feeling good, you need to try it.
I have to start all over again.
Get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/AnnieLease and use code AnnieLease at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/AnnieLease and use code AnnieLease for 40% off. Trust me, this is going to change your sweet game like tenfold.
I would like to make a statement without any intent to change my stipulated sentence. For the past 4 years, I've chosen to follow counsel and guidance that has led me to a dark delusion. A distorted version of reality that gradually unchecked by the isolate continually challenged me. I was led to believe that this world was an evil place, filled with cops who control, hospitals that injure, government agencies that brainwash, church leaders who lie and lust, husbands who refuse to protect, and children who need. My choice to believe in this paranoia culminated into criminal activity, for which I stand before you today ready to take accountability. Durant was never my business partner, nor was I ever employed by her. I have never received wages from her or connections. Jody was a friend as my son's counselor in 2019, and in 2020 I paid her. It's me to demonstrate my remorse and regret without blame. I take full accountability for my choices, and it is my preference that I serve a prison sentence. Thank you to the officers in Santa Clara and the Island City Police. Kate Conley, Brian Filippo, Sam Picubit, Mike Pandora, in Tolbert, John Wood, D. Rose, and Chief Flowers. These are the angels who came and saved my children. I especially want to thank Detective J. Bate. She popped me out of a situation I didn't know how to get out of. And the moment she kept me was the moment I gained my freedom. You were not the controlling ones. I was. Thank you to the medical staff at Indiana Hospital. Your skill, tenderness, and professionalism helped to heal my children. You and I inflicted the injuries, not the hospital. Thank you to DC Press, the Children's Justice Center, Judge Basil, and other key adults. You've guided my children into your room and offered them love, compassion, encouragement. You were not the ones who were doing the brainwashing. Thank you to my Bishop Tom Hawks and my state president Jim Nelson for reminding me of the Lord's love for the lost. So much pain and suffering would have been avoided had I followed the community counsel. I was the one who was deceived, not you. Thank you to the Washington County Prosecutor's Office.
Thank you for what? Are you receiving an award, bitch? The fuck?
You exemplified to me how justice and mercy are meant to coexist. My charges are just. They offer safety to my family, accountability to the public, and redemption mercy to me. Thank you to my attorney Lamar, and his staff. I would not be where I am today without them. Thank you
The fuck? Is she fucking getting an award?
in healing my family. My dear friends, Pam and Blair, I'm so sorry for letting you down. Because of your association with me, your innocence was called into question. My mother-in-law, father-in-law, Kevin's family, my cousins, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and neighbors, you all saw the warning signs long before I did, and you did what you could. You wanted to help, but I pushed you away. My mother and father, I have been utterly wretched to you. You have offered me unconditional love, and for that I have offered you unconditional contempt. My siblings...
What the fuck is wrong with that lady? Why is she saying the thank you like she's getting an award? What?
In public. Yet, when I desired to return as a prodigal sister, unlike the prodigal's brother in the Bible, you slept with my parents and ran up to greet me. Your capacity to love is unprecedented. Kevin, my husband of more than 23 years. You were the love of my life. So sorry to leave to finish what we both started together. You know, my marriage is a tragedy. You know, I'm not drawing my plate. You know, all the people that I do. To my babies. My 6 month chicks. You know, part of me. I was the mom of that who was consistently running into safety. I can see now. And over these 4 years, I was in a deep undercurrent of risk to danger. However, Rachel began persuading me. Decided that I would make darkest night when I was wrong. I would do anything that was wrong for you. My will was to sacrifice all things masterful, but I can do something very ugly. I took for all that was soft and safe and good. I took for my mother. My dear boys must have been for you. Your boys were funny. My God, I returned your sons. You know, you're so precious to me. I'm sorry. My voice. To live here where I was creating great vulnerability and a blind spot for me. Where I have broken hearts and have caused people to suffer and I have betrayed sacred trust. Watching my community respond to my charges with justice and mercy and grace and love without having this to my heart and within is one of the thousands of people. And then I'm sorry for twisting God's word and distorting his doctrines. I am humbled and willing to serve a prison sentence as long as it takes to continue unraveling all of this information I have gleaned, swallowed and acted, committed to continuing my learning until all of my toxic layers are shed, and I am ready to reenter as a contributing member of our beautiful society. Thank you, Judge Wilson. I sincerely love you.
Now, if you thought that Ruby and Jody being sentenced would have kept their names and faces out of the mainstream media for good, you are incredibly wrong, because one of the more positive reasons that they have still been in the media is all due to Ruby's oldest daughter, Sherry, and her releasing a book. And I mentioned it at the top of this episode, but this book was like a complete tell-all. And I've actually done a summary of the book itself, as mentioned, which I gotta say, I seriously blew this out of the water. And if you're into reading, you should definitely check it out, or at the very least, go check out that episode. I'll link it in the show notes. So without completely rehashing it all, I will say that the book was filled to the brim with great insane details, and also also a behind-the-scenes look into what was going on in the Frankie household during that time.
Stories or even stumble on a thought or a memory. Yet Amy, just like Tyler, it's always a word-for-word retelling. Personally, when I see this, it just feels really disingenuous to me. It just feels very rehearsed. Now, 2022, honestly, my phone crashed and the desktop wasn't loading it, and I already spent enough time scrolling through her stuff, so I decided to move on. Because from 2023 up until today, her TikTok is like 99% mediumship, and very much about making money from readings and workshops, etc. Alright, so that's her chronological biography. Now, let's dive into really the issue with Amy's readings, some of the honest reviews that I found, her disrespect, and the controversies, and that leads to our special guest, mentalist Dustin Dean. But let's get into long laundry list I have of issues. Amy, the ITC medium. When someone first asked me about Amy, the first thing I found was her doing mediumship reading using a spirit box. Alright, for those wondering, ITC, I never actually defined it before, so it's a instrumental transcommunication is what the ITC stands for. For those not familiar, these are the people that use like spirit boxes and stuff to talk to like Michael Jackson. We see it a lot, like Michael Jackson, those channels where they just talk to famous people and then make up crap based on like what the spirit box, which is just a normal radio, tells them. And ITC's like, it's anything. It's not just spirit boxes. It can be like EVPs or whatever. It's essentially using devices. And this is where I have to ask, what kind of medium uses devices? A spirit box especially, like that cycles through radio stations. The words you're getting are from the radio. And we all know about those gross channels and the crap they do. Well, like, she does that too. She uses these devices to get in touch with people from criminal cases that have passed, that were unalived by others, and she makes up stuff about them based on what it tells her. One example is Grant Solomon, and I'm just going to put a picture on the screen here. And the stuff that she's saying is like, oh, well, the box said it, so it must be true. Just to make it clear, just because you say, we don't know without physical evidence, that still doesn't take away from the fact that you broadcasted the spirit box saying that and you played it up. It doesn't absolve you of the guilt, the issue at hand here with misinformation and changing history using stupid devices. Like, it's very inappropriate. And for those unfamiliar, Grant, he was a person who was struck by his own car while in the parking lot of a baseball training club. And there's just like a lot of conspiracies around his death, and just her adding to it does not help things. But this leads us into the disrespect that Amy displays to the deceased in the grieving. Exposing the disrespect. Okay, the first one I have here is a grocery cart story. I'm going to try to limit how many clips I show of Amy's channel, just in case she tries to use that to pull down the video here or whatever. So essentially, I'll try to summarize this. She sees a woman in the grocery, she sees a woman in the parking lot of the grocery store, and she suddenly has a message or whatever from someone. I'm not giving this story justice because I'm not going to word for word it, but she essentially comes up to the woman and she doesn't say the videos on this, and I've since noticed and learned issues of disrespect by the Red Lady. The whole situation is very exploitative, and I do agree with the points made by these other creators. Mainly, everyone has pointed out that the lady who owned the house, Amy, she got way too excited that there could be a true crime in the backyard. You know what I mean, like possibly a plot. Then she cried when it turned out there wasn't a body, and then she started going on about the neighbor who passed and saying that her neighbor was haunting her. She just seemed really disingenuous on this and really tried to become an influencer. Apparently, she also had some weird bug situation in the past with a boy band or something. Either way, it's too complex to explain everything here. I might try to put like a clip of something in, we'll see, but it's a very, very long story. I would just recommend you go watch Hannah's summary video, the first video on Rug Lady, to understand it. I'll also link to doing another podcast. So after Katie's rug incident was over, she then had Amy come as a medium to talk to the ghost of the neighbor haunting her. Now, I want to point out some of the issues with this whole thing that happened with Amy and Katie. I recommend that you watch the Hannah the Horrible video. She begins talking about this incident around the 25-minute mark in this video. Hannah hits a lot of key points about Amy's role in this mess. Both these ladies are very exploitative of the neighbor who passed. Like, what if family or friends see this on TikTok? I know they said this woman in her family, she may have had friends, and like, what if it was your friend or relative? Wouldn't it upset you that someone's just using their death to make money on TikTok? They filmed a woman who passed her house. They film her house. They look inside her windows, like they film it. Woman was a hoarder, and then they're commenting on this. They're posting people publicly. It was very disrespectful of the person who passed, and the fact that the medium is doing this, mediums are supposed to be more respectful of the dead. They go over to Margaret's house and film the outside of Margaret's boarded up house that was boarded up after she passed away. They film the outside of her house without her permission, obviously she passed away, but without anybody in her family's permission, anything. That would be one thing. That would be bad enough. That's gross to me. I cannot imagine just doing that and feeling okay about that. These two women go out to the window and they film inside the house. They film her hoarding situation without her permission, without anybody in the family's permission. Now, I'm not showing this because I think it's disgusting that they posted this publicly in the first place, but imagine, that would be not shocking for Katie, but a psychic medium whose entire job supposedly is to respect the dead, and she signed off on this too, and she was with Katie doing this, that is so gross to me. Why? I'm sorry, but hoarding is a mental illness that people legitimately suffer from. It's not just people being lazy. Imagine having a mental illness like that is so physically visible, you know, for the world to see, and somebody, after you pass away, goes to film it and puts it online. Imagine that if your mother, your sister, or your grown daughter has this, and without your permission, without some bullshit went viral on TikTok, without your say, without you getting a say in whether Margaret was part of this story or not, and then somebody posts her mental illness online. Why does everybody think this is okay? Nobody, we have lost the fucking plot. Why clout comes before anything, even respecting fellow human beings. So, Katie and the psychic medium also live streamed their sessions in Katie's house, talking to the ghosts and Margaret, who they think is Margaret. The rest of the night, the whole video looked like a normal YouTube ghost hunter channel using ITC devices. It was just essentially a YouTube ghost hunter live stream. Amy relies heavily on the dead bell during this too, which we all know is debunked. It goes off on its own. It doesn't sense EMF. It's just trash. Paranormal Quest debunked it. Beardo looked at it too. Aiden missed it too. There's a bunch of people who still have issues with this bell. It's just a gimmick to rip off people. It's actually set up to keep going off on its own. It has something inside of it that makes it go off on its own. I'll try to play you some clips as well of the dead bell.
The dead bell debunked because I think it's important for paranormal teams to debunk for their own credibility. Paranormal Quest went a step beyond that. They basically just crap and sent it to me. They're like, how about it? Now, I don't think you hear this, but stick it away in there. I don't know if Michael picked it up. Just stick it in there. Something is winding up. It's just constantly going off.
The Red Lady incident is just another example of inappropriate behavior for a medium. Also, not just speaking of Amy, other TikTok mediums do this crap too. It seems to be a sickness, a TikTok plague of some sort that just throws common decency out the window. But this leads us into another issue. Exploiting other creators' grief. Alright, the first one is Mama Tot. I'm not going to get into the details of who Mama Tot is or whatever, just know they're a big creator on TikTok, and the woman, her son, was unalived by somebody. So then she went to TikTok sort of asking anyone for help to find who did it and find out what happened and all that. From there, then people were tagging Amy and were like, Amy, you should connect with Mama Tot and help her figure out what happened to her son. I just think it's really weird, just to not be around the bush. Some people said, oh, well, they were friends before this, so it's okay. But it's they did this and they put it all on TikTok. They put this whole thing on display. And I don't necessarily blame Mama Tot for it, because Mama Tot was grieving and in shock and was reaching out to public transfers. And to be honest, the public and tips from the public, the majority of the time is how they solve cases like this. Public helps the cops solve cases more than other clues. CSI stuff is not as effective as the public, right? So I understand why Mama Tot went public with it, and I understand too that she's reading and probably not thinking straight. I don't fully blame her for it, but the medium should know better. It should be the only medium that respects the dead. It seemed very exploitative of Mama Tot's grief. When someone has grieving state too, they'll grieve things and they're in a bad state. It's taking advantage of someone when they don't have all the faculties. And this is the problem with mediums. It's all mediums do this, right? That's what some people understand. They're oh well, the person's going into it willingly. It's no, they're not in their right mind though. And
she was begging to go home. Why didn't you just use the front door?
That's only a question that you can ask in hindsight when you have to desperately get someone away from you and separate the two of you and try and de-escalate an altercation. It doesn't come into the equation that that person is going to climb off the balcony and fall 14 floors to their death.
How far is it between the front door and the balcony door?
It was a lot closer to the balcony door, and it was wide open, and it was the logical option at the time.
Just 27 seconds after Warina is locked out on the balcony, she falls to her death. The haunting final scream recorded on Gable's phone.
It must have been incredibly harrowing for her family to hear this all unfold blow by blow.
Yeah, indeed, it's shocking listening. It must be harrowing to sit through that recording, and equally for people in the court complex that are exposed to it and have to think about it, witnessing the last moments of someone's life.
For 2 years, Gable was out on bail, charged with the murder of Warina Wright. The simple pleasures of the father and son game of golf seemed a world away.
Yeah, that's good.
When your son was charged with murder, did that sound in any way believable?
Totally unbelievable and surreal. Didn't make any sense.
I was there when the police arrested Gable and put him in handcuffs and took him away, and I was totally concerned about that. It was hard to process. I didn't know why it was happening. To be called an accused murderer, my son, knowing the type of person he is, caring and considerate and thoughtful of others, never harmed anyone else.
But it's her son's actions that night that would call both his inner...
Yeah, no, we never allowed them to share a bedroom. Every parent believes that their children are trustworthy. Every child believes their parent is trustworthy. That's true, too. Yeah. Definitely. For 23 years, Manda and Dr. David Renke were happily married, raising their 2 daughters here in the conservative Afrikaner community of Middelburg. Dion was the son they never had. Quickly, the chemistry changed between Manda, so here's where it gets complicated. First, there was flirtatious texting, then came the sex. So, not only was Dion sleeping with Lalid, he was also in a sexual relationship with her mum, 26 years as single. She says that she sent her a text saying it was your fantasy to be with an older woman.
She asked me if I ever had that fantasy, and I said, I think...
Well, it is a schoolboy fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah, but...
Is that when the sex began?
Yeah, pretty much.
That opened the door for... I mean, he was 17. He was your daughter's boyfriend. I know. If I can make sense of that, I might make sense of my life now. We did visit here, we did have dinner here, and then we got together for the first time in a sexual way, yeah. In August 2007, only 4 days after the first text, they were in bed together, here, now, there with me, at the Wishes and Dreams Lodge, just outside Pretoria. It was sex between 2 consensual people. Was it romantic? Yes, it was. At that point, you think, this is wrong, this is so wrong. I do not have bad memories of that feeling. Not at all.
The first time it happened, I was just over it, and I just said, listen, I really feel bad, and I don't want to do it anymore. That's done for me. Then she just started saying, no, she doesn't think so, and if I keep doing that, she will tell everyone, she will tell everyone else.
Dion was never raped. Dion came to me willingly. He had his own transport. He made arrangements with me. We never drank or smoked pot or did anything to soften the blow of having sex with the older woman. I might have been Dion's meal ticket, but I was never his prison.
Did you say to Dion, if you stop this sexual relationship with me, I will tell my daughter and you will lose her?
Yes, once.
I think I was just really too scared to say no. I was just too scared to say no.
But for you to be involved in a sexual act, it takes 2 to tango. So was there a part of you that did enjoy what was going on?
Obviously, yeah.
It's hard looking at the pictures because this was... Now I know this was 2 days after you and my mother slept together for the first time, so it makes this beautiful memory sad. It makes it sad.
Photographs and memories are all that's left, collected in what Darlene calls a Dion box. The first she knew of the betrayal was when she discovered a letter from Dion trying to end the affair with Manda, along with her mother's diary, which spelled it all out in juicy, lurid detail.
She wrote that where they did it, how they did it, when it happened, why it happened, and I felt sick, and that's when I found out about the relationship.
In that moment, who did you feel most betrayed by? Dion or your mum?
She said with my first love, and she said with my boyfriend, I felt betrayed. I didn't think about Dion because it's your mum.
It's your mum.
We both crossed that line. That was a line that should never have been crossed. Never. I do accept that you are the bigger betrayer in this. You crossed that line. It is your daughter. It is your home. He is under your care. You are the adult. And for that, I have all responsibility. I cannot explain the part where I came for. I never say to myself, remember, he's her boyfriend. He's her boyfriend. Never. What was wrong with you? I think it was love. It totally blinded me. Did you love him more than you loved your own daughter? Yes, at that stage.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. That's not a mom.
Dion's affair with both mother and daughter was over. His rugby career went from strength to strength, earning international selection. Meanwhile, Manda's life was falling apart. She lost her husband, she lost her home, she lost her daughter. She became the ultimate woman scorner. One thing she did have, though, was her ongoing obsession with Dion.
She told me at one stage that if she could have anything, I would get it. Simple as that.
Events quickly escalated from seedy to sinister. Manda became vengeful, and in an extraordinary attempt to get back at Dion, she hired 2 Nigerian hitmen who were more than happy to take her cash, but lucky for Dion, also happy to betray her.
I got a phone call at night, which late night, about 9:30, and he just said, listen, yeah, just listen to me because I was hired to kill you. So, yeah, I just said, sure, that's the way.
So when he told you this, that he'd been hired to kill you, what was going through your mind?
I didn't sleep that night, if that's what you're asking, because now it's scared I was. But as soon as he told me that, I knew it was her.
Now, Manda freely admits she hired the hitmen, but she claims only to maim Dion, not to kill him.
No head injury, no facial trauma. I want you to hurt his knee. I don't want him to play rugby anymore. I want to rob him of a future that was robbed from me. I never, ever wanted him dead, because a dead person cannot get up every morning and feel the hurt that we were feeling.
But police always believed Manda wanted Dion murdered, so they set up this extraordinary scene. Dion covered in real blood, pretending to be dead. The hitmen, who were by now working with police, sent her this photo to prove they fulfilled their contract. Dion was dead, but it was all a con.
I mean, we say he didn't want this boy dead, but he shared a photo, told that he's dead, we've done the job.
No, I sent him back. Where's the knee injury? Please explain.
She might claim to be disappointed with the hitman's handiwork, but Manda still turned up the very next morning to pay the hitman their $4,000, and that's when the police pounced.
What was that money like for you?
I was so relieved that he was finally over.
When my mum was arrested, the photos that were taken with this woman with no expression on her face, she seemed dead inside.
Do you think any of that, whether it was to hurt him or kill him, is normal, acceptable behaviour?
No, I don't. I was betrayed by two people and I just sat back. She was betrayed by one.
The revelations of this extraordinary love triangle scandalized the nation, but after Manda made a plea bargain late last year, she only received a 5 years.
Everything went cold for a long time. It would take almost 12 years and the arrival on the scene of a new detective with a fresh set of eyes.
The Melissa Howard case was a cold case.
The murder of the 33-year-old nurse from Crestview, Florida, had gone unsolved for some 10 years.
Cold cases are just, well, that's it, they're cold.
In those years, Melissa's son Taylor, 10 years old at the time of his mother's murder, had been raised by his father, unaware his father was a prime suspect.
New Year. Probably most people are happy and thinking of the future. However, for one family, is yet another reminder of another year without a loved one. Her mother, Janet Gilsworth, is anxious for the police to find answers to their daughter's murder.
Oh, that's sad. You know, I mean, there's not a day goes by I don't think about her.
The Florida Department of Law Enforcement even reached out to inmates in the state prison, creating a deck of 52 playing cards of the victims of unsolved murders across the state. Melissa Howard was the three of hearts. But still, there were no new leads, and friends and family were losing hope.
When we lost her, all of the children that she loved, even the ones that weren't hers, were devastated. And still are.
But for a certain kind of detective, like Dennis Haley of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, a cold case is the ultimate challenge.
It's like putting a puzzle together. It's like going back and bringing a conclusion to a case and bringing justice to families who felt like maybe law enforcement forgot about their loved ones.
Melissa Howard's case files had been gathering dust at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the FDLE.
The case was handed to me, and I didn't have an opportunity to work on it.
Enter a new FDLE agent assigned to the Florida Panhandle area, Megan Palumbo.
When Agent Megan Palumbo come to my office and asked me if she could work a cold case, and I said that I had this case I had a chance to look at. Would she mind looking at it?
I went back and just looked at initial crime scene photos, really just kind of started looking at what was there that was maybe being overlooked or just needed to be looked at a little bit more thoroughly.
And once again, a focus on Melissa's ex-husband, Ryan Howard.
Her ex-husband had been a suspect in the initial investigation. He had an alibi. He was at a restaurant meeting with his family, so we had receipts, timestamp receipts. A lot of eyes were on him that evening.
Agent Palumbo teamed up with a detective from the local Crestview police chief, Ralph Garrett. He thought the ex-husband's alibi was just too good.
It doesn't control his track very well, and he knew that we weren't going to put him at her house. I believe he thought he got away, but I'm sure that he was always looking over his shoulder.
And Agent Palumbo then did what she says she always does in such cold cases, and tried to imagine what happened, how the murder went down.
I believe they came in through the front door. Melissa had put up a fight, and she was across the living room from the front door and laying on her stomach and chest area. There were toys that had been kind of strewn out on the floor. There was picture frames and things that had been knocked off of an end table hutch that's on the end of the couch, and there was a lot of disturbance.
And that picture she created in her mind gave her an idea of what detectives might have missed 10 years earlier.
I think they initially believed maybe she was attacked from the front, right at the door, and I believed and Dennis believed that she had been actually attacked from behind, and that's why we had the back of the sweatshirt re-examined.
When a shirt comes in, they take random cuttings, and they may not always get fortunate enough to get the right place.
So that led them to ask the forensics lab to re-examine Melissa's sweatshirt using new testing techniques.
That was one of the non-affected areas of the sweatshirt where they had tested before, but where we found it at the end was a cleaner portion of the sweatshirt.
2 weeks later, surprising, satisfying news from the state crime lab. A discovery of DNA that was not that of Missy Howard. It was likely the DNA of the killer.
And the turning point in this case was the DNA discovery.
But then the surprise. The DNA was not that of her ex-husband, Brian Howard, and it did not match any DNA from the FDLE crime files. But it was remarkably similar to Howard's best friend, Michael Hope, although not an identical match.
It's close, but it's not his.
It was a familial match to Michael's, a paternal or male relative of Michael Holbrook.
Melissa's lawyer had told detectives that Michael's brother, Russell Holbrook, had been the man who had gone to Melissa's home 2 days before she was murdered and delivered a threatening message.
So from that, we wrote a search warrant for the DNA of Russell Holbrook.
Russell Holbrook had since moved to Alabama. He was not happy when the Florida detectives showed up at his door.
Investigator Ralph Garrett collected DNA swabs from inside his mouth. He didn't have anything to say. You can see if he was mad or angry. But one of the first things I noticed is it appeared that his heart had moved from his chest up into his throat. You can see it pounding in his throat. Well, I'm thinking we're talking to a guilty man right now.
You know, sometimes, sometimes you're brought up from another mother as close as your brother. You know what I mean?
And that's how the detectives in the Melissa Howard murder case saw the relationship between her ex-husband Brian and the two Holbrook brothers, Michael and Russell.
But you got friends that they go out and do stuff they shouldn't do, so they got dirt on each other and they know certain things about each other that you would never do with your family.
They were like a band of brothers. They all had something on one another. She told me they all had a little dirt on one another.
So now, the detectives waited for the results from the state crime lab. The DNA found on the blood-soaked sweatshirt of Melissa did not match her ex-husband Brian or his friend Michael Holbrook. But would it be a match for Russell Holbrook?
Russell was the only one that refused to give us DNA. And we know now why.
It was a match.
It was excitement. It was the big breakthrough that we needed to move it forward.
That was very important, and that was the key to this whole case.
The theory, the hunt by Detective Megan Palumbo about how Melissa was killed, and paid off.
The fight was on from the door on in. I think Melissa put up a very good fight, and it unfortunately just wasn't enough. And I think they got behind her and had her by the face and stabbed her in the neck.
And when she says they, she includes the other Holbrook brother, Michael.
Well, I know Michael Holbrook was at least present because he put himself with his brother that evening. I can't necessarily say what his actions were.
Adding to her belief, this surveillance video showing both Holbrook brothers, Russell and Michael, at a nearby Walmart taken shortly after the suspected time of the murder. We believe, yes, it was after they'd already killed Melissa Howard. They went in there to buy medicine for the child that was Russell's girlfriend. And it's got Michael even looking at his hands in the Walmart. Maybe he got blood on his hands, maybe he touched something. You know, I don't know. He was looking at his hands. It's obviously what he's doing. The fact that after all these years, we now know basically what happened to Melissa Howard and who done it. But we want to make the case stronger. So before announcing they had a DNA match, the detectives had one more move to make.
Yeah, I got 2 minutes.
They got a warrant that the photos of the two brothers, listened in as Russell admitted to Michael he had indeed gone to Melissa's house 2 days before the murder, something he had earlier denied to police.
I went to her house and talked to her. Okay. Mrs. House? Yeah. So you've been to her house before? Yeah. So, then it's possible that you're leaving from her house. Yeah, but it would have been all over her. No, of course not.
And the detectives did what they call tickling the wire, purposely leaking information to the brothers and their friends.
I don't know if we said that they're trying to scare me. So now they're telling everybody in Okaloosa County that they have me dead to rights.
We told Michael that we had the results of DNA and it looked like it was a match to his brother. So we wanted to see if that would initiate a phone call, which it did.
No, he said they got some new DNA technology. He showed me
Our theory of the case is that Brian Howard solicited the Holbrook boys to kill Melissa Howard. I didn't feel Russell would go down for the whole thing. I figured he'd end up talking to me about something.
People that do stuff out of goodness of heart, I'll kill people. I mean, you're giving me money, you're giving me something. I'm not doing it out of goodness of my heart.
And when he was being questioned at the time of the murder, Brian Howard even brought up a possible twisted good old boy deal he had made with Russell. And he makes a statement to us that, yeah, the rumor was made that I was supposed to kill Russell's wife and Russell was supposed to kill my wife. No, he brought that up. We never made that comment. So it makes you wonder if that really was the plan. But if that was the plan, Russell Holbrook was holding up his end of the deal, turning down any offer for a plea, refusing to implicate others, and ready to go to trial.
Arrogant is the word I was thinking. He was untouchable.
All rise, please. 30 now in session. And please the court and defense counsel.
It took 13 years to get to this day. Russell Holbrook on trial in the Okaloosa County, Florida courtroom for the murder of Melissa Howard.
I think they thought they had the perfect plan. I think they thought they had the perfect execution. And I don't think he ever thought he'd be where he is right now today.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Prosecutor Clifton Drake began with a recap of the men who were in Melissa Howard's life at the time. The man accused of killing her, Russell Holbrook, his brother, Michael Holbrook, her ex-husband, Brian Howard, and the boyfriend who discovered her body, a UPS driver named Christopher Caden.
You will also learn that he was married at the time that he was dating Melissa Howard. He will admit that to you. That is no secret that he was having an affair with Melissa Howard.
And the prosecutor then told the jury that it was only thanks to new DNA testing techniques used on Melissa's sweatshirt that the lab analysts were able to determine that one of those 4 men had been a DNA match.
And you will hear testimony from Jennifer Hattler that when she compared Russell Holbrook's DNA to the male DNA on Melissa Howard's sweatshirt, it matched. You will hear her testify that the frequency of occurrence of those two being matched is 1 in 39 million people.
And then an admission from the prosecutor that would later give the defense an opening.
You will also learn, during my case, maybe during the defense, that a DNA contamination occurred in this case.
Contamination of DNA test results has proven to be one of the few effective ways for defense lawyers to undercut the presumed certainty of DNA match.
Everyone.
Okay. And Holbrook's lawyer, John Jarvis, would make it a key part of his case.
The contamination occurred on the most important piece of evidence in this trial, which is not quite as clear and dry as the state would have you believe. The next thing is motive. For 13 years, Rescue Police, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, investigators from the state attorney's office were all unable to produce a motive for Russell to commit this crime. 13 years, could produce one. No motive. Absolutely no motive. And I would ask that after the close of all this evidence, they come back with a verdict and return a verdict from counsel. Thank you very much. State Rate Caller for witness. Yes, sir. State calls Carrie Winkler.
Melissa Howard's daughter, 15 years old at the time when she came home to discover her mother's body.
So what happened once the door was open?
Once we were able to open the door, I went into the front foyer and I turned the light on.
What did you see once there was better light?
I found the light there.
And then she described how frightened her mother was of Russell Holbrook, who she said she had seen talking to her mother just 2 days before the murder.
Was there any other time that Russell was at your house other than that Wednesday night?
No.
Why not?
Russell.
Lawyer wanted to talk about with Cadenhead was the affair and whether that might be a motive for murder.
And I guess Melissa Howard knew that you were married, is that right?
Yes.
And there was some talk that you were going to be leaving your wife, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir. I was pretty much heading out the door. Yes, sir.
And you had kind of indicated to her, Miss Melissa Howard, that you wanted to be with her. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
to the crime scene.
My name is Jennifer Hattler.
Ms. Hattler, where are you employed?
I'm employed at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in the Biology and DNA section.
There was no more important testimony. Analyst Jennifer Hattler talking about the DNA of Russell Holbrook that she found on Melissa Howard's sweatshirt.
So this is the sweatshirt, and you can see it has quite a bit of blood on it, but this is the area that had the least amount of blood. And this is the cutting that I took, the additional cutting, and then this is the cutting. These stains from before.
All done years after the murder, thanks to the new DNA testing techniques.
That's 100% what put Russell there?
It's almost like magic. Sometimes it's hard to describe because DNA has opened up the door in so many things.
Mrs. Howard, we talked about the contamination that occurred in this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
The cross-examination that happened was all about possible contamination, how easily it can happen in a lab.
I believe you said sometimes you've gotten your DNA in samples before. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you've even gotten your baby's DNA in samples. Is that correct? Yes. And that's touched DNA, right?
I was assuming from the baby that it was saliva or drool.
The baby touched you. Then you went to work and came into the lab. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the analyst said in the case of Melissa's sweatshirt, the contamination came from an unwashed pair of scissors.
I mean, I thought I had.
Did you clean the scissors or not before this contamination?
Well, obviously I did not.
But on redirect with the prosecutor, Hadley said once she realized the mistake, she used a second sample that was not contaminated.
Were you able to draw a conclusion?
Our partial foreign DNA profile matched the DNA profile from David Russell Holbrook. The frequency of occurrence of the partial DNA profile for unrelated individuals is 1 in 39 billion.
May it please the court, defense counsel, ladies and gentlemen. Melissa Howard is 5 feet 6 inches and weighed 115 pounds. You had the opportunity to observe the defendant. He's a figure. We know he's military trained and he likes knives. It would not take him long at all to subdue and kill Melissa Howard. He does not need hours upon hours to carry this out. He can go in, do it, and get out.
For the 4 detectives who had worked on this case at some point over the last 13 years, it was the culmination of so much work, so many hours put in to find the killer.
I think we just had that feeling it was solvable if we just put our minds together.
They were in the courtroom for the closing argument. To hear the defense claim they had done a sloppy job.
This case was personal, ladies and gentlemen. They were aggressive, they were in a hurry, and this led to mistakes being made in the lab and elsewhere, and to stretching the science that was involved in the case. There's a lot of sloppy work going on, and mistakes are being made. With all of these problems, they equal one thing: reasonable doubt. I don't believe Melissa Howard. I don't. I just know the state hasn't proven that Russell Holbrook did it.
All right, it's my understanding the jury's reached a verdict. We'll publish the verdict at this time. The defendant will rise.
With the jury find as follows as to the offense charged and the indictment. Guilty of first-degree premeditated murder as charged in the indictment. So say we all this 27th day of February 2019.
He really showed no emotions that I could see. I believe that he thought he beat it up until the time the jury said he was guilty.
The court is prepared at this time to deliver a sentence consistent with the law of the state of Florida. The sentence is as follows. David Russell Holbrook will be sentenced to life in prison in the state of Florida Department of Corrections.
Even though the sentence had been set, Melissa Howard's daughter Carrie wanted to be heard, wanted Russell Holbrook to hear what she had to say.
We haven't been with our mother for 13 years while he gets to go free and be with his children and his grandchildren, and our mother missed all of our graduations, maybe having a nurse following in her footsteps. Her first grandchild born in December, my upcoming wedding in August, and everything else that a mother should never have to miss, let alone the children ever have to go through, because someone has such disregard for human life.
Anything further? Then it will be taken into custody against danger.
Well, I was happy, but it felt unfinished, and I want to know why. That's an easy question to answer. Why? There's no logical reason for Mr. Holbrook to go into Melissa's house and stab her multiple times and kill her. It doesn't add up that he did that.
I honestly believe that either John Howard put him up to it or somebody else was with him. He didn't do it by himself.
And 3 months after the verdict, detectives got a new lead. Who's Howard? What's her name?
I'm Sarah Judd, and my husband's going from your house.
And your husband is?
Brian Howard.
Brian Howard's frightened wife, Jordan Victoria Howard, showed up at the sheriff's office. FBI agent Megan Belondo was brought in to help lead the question.
You know what happened to your sis. So, we don't want that done to you. Okay? We can't undo that, but we can try to fix this.
So you're just afraid? What?
I know.
Whoa, how do you know that?
Because I know.
All right, you make a comment. How do you know?
Because he told me.
Claiming her husband had arranged for someone else to do it.
He didn't tell me that Russell's the one that actually did it. He said some other name, I'm sure, to cover Russell. But he told me that he hired someone to do it.
Brian Howard was later arrested and convicted of a misdemeanor charge of domestic abuse. He has denied any involvement in the murder of his former wife, Melissa, and he has not been charged with any crime in that case. Nor has Michael Holbrook been charged with any crime in the case, as his brother Russell spends the rest of his life behind bars for the murder of Melissa Howard.
There's still time. Russell hasn't been sitting there long enough in jail. Time takes its toll on a person. I think Russell's always been very protective of Michael. But Russell gets to the crime scene.
My name is Jennifer Hattler.
Ms. Hattler, where are you employed?
I'm employed at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in the Biology and DNA section.
There was no more important testimony. Analyst Jennifer Hattler talking about the DNA of Russell Holbrook that she found on Melissa Howard's sweatshirt.
So this is the sweatshirt, and you can see it has quite a bit of blood on it, but this is the area that had the least amount of blood. And this is the cutting that I took, the additional cutting, and then this is the cutting. These stains from before.
All done years after the murder, thanks to the new DNA testing techniques.
That's 100% what put Russell there?
It's almost like magic. Sometimes it's hard to describe because DNA has opened up the door in so many things.
Mrs. Howard, we've talked about the contamination that occurred in this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
The cross-examination that happened was all about possible contamination, how easily it can happen in a lab.
I believe you said sometimes you've gotten your DNA in samples before. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you've even gotten your baby's DNA in samples. Is that correct? Yes. And that's touched DNA, right?
I was assuming from the baby that it was saliva or drool.
The baby touched you. Then you went to work and came into the lab. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the analyst said in the case of Melissa's sweatshirt, the contamination came from an unwashed pair of scissors.
I mean, I thought I had.
Did you clean the scissors or not before this contamination?
Well, obviously I did not.
But on redirect with the prosecutor, Hadley said once she realized the mistake, she used a second sample that was not contaminated.
Were you able to draw a conclusion?
Our partial foreign DNA profile matched the DNA profile from David Russell Holbrook. The frequency of occurrence of the partial DNA profile for unrelated individuals is 1 in 39 billion.
May it please the court, defense counsel, ladies and gentlemen. Melissa Howard is 5 feet 6 inches and weighed 115 pounds. You had the opportunity to observe the defendant. He's a figure. We know he's military trained and he likes knives. It would not take him long at all to subdue and kill Melissa Howard. He does not need hours upon hours to carry this out. He You can go in, do it, and get out.
For the four detectives who had worked on this case at some point over the last 13 years, it was the culmination of so much work, so many hours put in to find the killer.
I think we just had that feeling it was solvable if we just put our minds together.
They were in the courtroom for the closing arguments to hear the defense claim they had done a sloppy job.
This case was personal, ladies and gentlemen. They were aggressive, they were in a hurry, and this led to mistakes being made in the lab and elsewhere, and to stretching the science that was involved in the case. There's a lot of sloppy work going on, and mistakes are being made. With all of these problems, they equal one thing: reasonable doubt. I don't think Melissa Howard. I don't. I just know the state hasn't proven that Russell Holbrook did it.
Well, it's my understanding the jury's reached a verdict. We'll publish the verdict at this time. The defendant will rise.
We, the jury, find as follows as to the offense charged and the indictment. Guilty of first-degree premeditated murder as charged in the indictment. So say we all this 27th day of February 2019.
He really showed no emotions that I could see. I believe that he thought he beat it up until the time the jury said he was guilty.
Court is prepared at this time to enter a sentence consistent with the law of the state of Florida. The sentence is as follows. David Russell Holbrook will be sentenced to life in prison in the state of Florida Department of Corrections.
Even though the sentence had been set, Melissa Howard's daughter Carrie wanted to be heard, wanted Russell Holbrook to hear what she had to say.
We haven't been with our mother for 13 years while he gets to go free and be with his children and his grandchildren, and our mother missed all of our graduations, me becoming a nurse following in her footsteps, her first grandchild born in December, my upcoming wedding in August, and everything else that a mother should never have to miss, let alone the children ever have to go through, because someone has such disregard for human life.
Anything further? Then it will be taken into custody against danger.
Well, I was happy, but it felt unfinished, and I want to know why. That's an easy question to answer. Why? There's no logical reason for Mr. Holbrook to go into Melissa's house and stab her multiple times and kill her. It doesn't add up that he did that.
I honestly believe that either John Howard put him up to it or somebody else was with him, but he didn't do it by himself.
And 3 months after the verdict, detectives got a new lead. What's her name?
I'm Sarah Judd, and my husband's going from your house.
Okay. And your husband is?
Brian Howard.
Brian Howard's frightened wife, Jordan Victoria Howard, showed up at the sheriff's office. FBLE agent Megan Palumbo was brought in to help lead the question.
You know what happened to your sis. So, we don't want that to happen to you. Okay? We can't undo that, but we can try to fix this.
So you're just afraid? What?
I know.
Whoa, how do you know that?
Because I know.
All right, you make a comment. How do you know?
Claiming her husband had arranged for someone else to do it.
He didn't tell me that Russell's the one that actually did it. He said some other name, I'm sure it's different Russell. But he told me that he hired someone to do it.
Brian Howard was later arrested and convicted of a misdemeanor charge of domestic abuse. He has denied any involvement in the murder of his former wife, Melissa, and he has not been charged with any crime in that case. Nor has Michael Holbrook been charged with any crime in the case, as his brother Russell spends the rest of his life behind bars for the murder of Melissa Howard.
There's still time. Russell hasn't been sitting there long enough in jail. Time takes its toll on a person. I think Russell's always been very protective of Michael. But Russell...
On Crime.
I ran outside and called the police, and our night started.
A teen girl vanishes in the night.
All you're focused on is finding your daughter. Just want to find your kid.
And evil may be right around the corner.
You just wish that someone had recognized that they had a ticking time bomb in events.
Hi everybody, I'm Jesse Weber, and welcome to Prime Crime. This is where we break down the most high-profile and memorable true crime cases. We cover some truly heinous acts here on the show, and our next story is really no different. But what makes this one especially chilling is the who and the why.
It's a very unusual day for us because Stacey and I, as Miss Parents, were typically up early. We were sworn to stay into our room because Tristan and Sophia were going to make breakfast for Stacey for Mother's Day.
Mother's Day 2021, St. John's, Florida. What should be a happy time of celebration for the Bailey family becomes a day of terror.
I walked out, and Sophia was making breakfast by herself, and I was like, where's Tristan? And she's like, she's still sleeping. And then my son came downstairs. I asked him to go upstairs and to wake up Tristan for breakfast. He came back, and he was like, Mom, listen, I know I'm blind, but I didn't see her up there. And then it instantaneously hit me sheer panic. On Saturday, Tristan had a normal family day. She went to dinner with her family. She visited one of her sisters that night. Unbeknownst to the family, she had sort of made some loose plans to hang out with friends later that night.
But 13-year-old Tristan Bailey never came home.
I ran upstairs and went to her room, and she wasn't there. I went to the bathroom. I went to our TV room upstairs. She wasn't there. Everyone just started running to every single room. I ran outside and called the police, and our nightmare started. That sort of started the timeline of law enforcement getting involved. It started as a missing child investigation. So many times with those types of calls, especially with a teenager, a lot of times it's a runaway. So they are treated serious until it seems that they aren't.
Authorities now need to piece together what Tristan was doing before she disappeared.
We had a great dinner with my son, Tristan and Sophia, and her granddaughter, and then we left dinner and went to see Alexis and her new kittens. I remember Tristan immediately ran into the kitten room. She loves any kind of animal.
We went home, and I actually was sitting at our dining room table falling asleep, and the three of them, Tegan and Sophia and Tristan, were up and just saying, I love you, and go to bed.
Investigators learned that Tristan left the house after FaceTiming with someone.
The family didn't know that she had left the house, and she went off with a boy.
She went out and went over to a friend's house by the name of Trey, and his friend, Fuji, was there. And she hung out at Trey's house a little bit that night.
It soon becomes clear that Tristan leaving her house would have horrifying consequences.
Sorry, can you tell me what's going on today? Sorry, there was a missing girl. This girl neighborhood was able to report. Sheriff's around. I've got the line. My wife is mentioning checking the list over here in the cul-de-sac. And the pond. Property next to us.
A neighbor who lived in the community was going to go out for a run, and he knew, there was a missing child. His wife had mentioned to him, there's a couple woods in the cul-de-sac. Kids would go back there and use it for different things, hang out, things like that.
I finished my run and I walked around through the woods that I started last week. When I came out of the fence and started in the pond, I saw a dead girl there. As soon as I saw her, I stopped and called 911.
unfortunately. And she was found. It was very clear it was a homicide. At that point, we just knew we had a girl that was, we didn't know the full extent at all of the number of stab wounds, but it was pretty clear she was stabbed.
Tristan was stabbed 114 times. Most of the wounds were defensive wounds, so she put up a fight. She fought back. It was a bloody awful crime scene.
There wasn't a lot in the scene, essentially, it was her, and so her personal items, the fact, her faith and her cell phone and jewelry and some money there on the ground. No murder weapon or anything right there, but just her playing in the woods. And actually, this is the front yard. And I had a lot of my friends surrounding me. I remember the police walking up to me and telling me that I needed to go inside with them. Thank you not to take me inside. I remember collapsing in my front yard, eating for them not to tell me when I knew it was coming. Shared the news. They're just missing. That's more devastating.
Kristen came from a close-knit family. She was one of 5 siblings with 2 loving parents, and they called themselves the Daily Seven.
Kristen was a 13-year-old, average, blissful girl. She was a very outgoing, bubbly girl. She was described by everybody I talked to as everyone's friend.
Tristan was just completely and totally vibrant. As a daughter, she was absolutely phenomenal. Our family is so diverse in what their interests were, and she was the common thread that went throughout. She was just somebody that was a bundle of energy, yet also a bundle of love. She was an excellent student. It was actually just talking about maybe going on and becoming a doctor. She was trying to get some career aspirations of going that path. Tristan was a very active, competitive cheerleader. Cheerleading was her first kind of love.
The question is, who could have done this to Tristan Bailey?
How long have you known Tristan? I have a group of friends, which is me, Aiden, and his girlfriend, Sophie. We're all pretty close. Tristan, I would hang out with her more alone or with like a class my Saturday night. She'd come over and do the 3 of us.
You start looking at anybody in her life. It was very early through her friends that they're providing like anyone that they know that she potentially would have snuck out to be with.
During your conversations with her, because she talked recently about working with she said that one time after she had breakfast, she's like, oh my god, I want to play. She had hot her sister's like, out.
One of those friends is 14-year-old Trey, who went to school with Tristan. He and another boy from school, 14-year-old Aiden Fucci, were believed to be the last ones with Tristan the night she disappeared.
Trey was Aiden Fucci's best friend. Aiden was a classmate of Tristan's, and they probably knew about each other. Trey knew Tristan, and Aiden had seen her with him.
When did you first meet Aiden? Certainly friend with him. I've known Aiden for about a year. We became friends in the first 5 minutes. Can you describe Aiden's attitude, his personality, demeanor? Didn't care about anything. He was a really big pothead. He was really chill.
Aiden had a history of documented behavioral issues and academic issues. We found out from talking to his friends that there was a lot of drug use that he was into. He had just come to our school. It was not a name that we ever heard in the circle of friends. And then we had
my parent was so obsessed with getting attention or making money off of me that they posted literally anything, even though I shouldn't have been experiencing that, because they wanted to, not because they cared about me. And I think this is a great example because also another thing is, that is not, I'm going to stand 10 toes down on this, that's not fucking normal to be looking at a little boy who is a baby, who's practically a baby, and if he's having big emotions and feeling a lot, that's not good to demonize crime. That is so toxic. I will never be okay with that. I don't care, girl, boy, whatever, whoever you are, demonizing a child for expressing their emotions in a healthy way and feeling a lot is not okay. That's not how you teach someone to regulate. Being a big boy by not crying, I think is kind of weird. I do. You need to be able to guide it. Even if they mess up, you have to, again, be the one that guides them to be better. I just think it's like, that's not healthy to try and teach your kids to not cry. And showing them going through a big emotion or maybe messing up or learning whatever that is, whatever created that situation, is not for us to see. I shouldn't see that. I should not know this. I should not have any comprehension of that kind of shit. And furthermore, I think we need to think about how this impacts everyone else in their future. Because if my mom shared things like this on Facebook, I already was getting like bullied in high school and middle school. I can't even imagine. I literally cannot even imagine how worse I would have gotten if my mom overly shared things about me. If mom shared too much about like me looking for my first bra, or when I started my period, or if I was having like a lot of big emotions, or like puberty was whooping my ass. This kind of stuff should not be shown on social media. Also, I'm sorry, but why the fuck are we utilizing kids for learning lessons? No, it's one thing to maybe have a casual conversation about some things with fellow parents, but let me put a camera in my kid's face and film it and utilize it so everyone else can learn. I think it's weird. There are so many resources online that can talk about child development. You can learn without watching a child get exploited. You can be entertained without watching a little child make a get unready video. You can also learn about teenagers and whatnot and correct your kids' behavior without making fun of them for misunderstanding on the app. Moral of the story, I am just, oof, man, this has bothered me a lot. I'm not a fan of this exploitation of children, and you do not have to be making money off of your child on this app to, at the same time, be exploiting these kids. It is gross. It's not okay, and that does not make people feel safe, in my opinion. I know I certainly wouldn't have, and I am just so irked with comments just thinking this is funny, entertaining it, thinking this is normal or so cute. It's not. It's literally not, and especially after me just seeing just a few clips of even the Ruby Frankie documentary on Hulu. There's so much shit that happens behind the scenes with kids who are content creator families or are just the main content source for family bloggers. It is disgusting. If this is what we see in public, I can't even imagine what we see in private. So please, be careful with the way that you share with your kids, okay? Because this lasts forever and this does impact mental health. Don't engage with this kind of stuff if you see it. I mean, I'm showing and blurring as much as I can to discuss this, but like, don't go harass people and like, just don't give them any more attention, because I think that's what some of these people are looking for, is attention and a laugh, when they should have friends for that, not looking for internet validation over whether their child messed up or didn't mess up, for that matter. So that was it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and actually comment down below if you guys want me to cover the new wave of influencers leaving California because of the new child labor laws about child influencers, because I'd like to do that. Don't forget to check out MD for the link in the description below and comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Today's video, we're going to talk about the recent podcast between Camilla and Santos exploring.
And then why didn't you just hand them your regular ID?
Because I was in a position in the wallet.
Oh, okay, so you didn't have it on you.
Yeah, so.
Does your military ID say your real age?
It does. You know, I was showing in the back. Just showing in the front.
This, my friends, is what you call riveting conversation. Mate, back and forth. You get these two together and the world stops for a couple seconds because fuck me. is like an excellent game of tennis right here. These portable one-liners just flinging back from side to side to side. Well, I didn't, show the officers the back of my military ID. Oh, what does that mean? Well, it means I only showed them the front of my military ID. Oh, really? Really, Santa? Is that what it means, is it? Because here I was thinking that when you said that you didn't show them the back of the military ID, that you actually didn't show them the front either. You showed them the fucking side of the ID. Here I was. Silly on me, by the way, thinking that you showed the police officers your ID, not by the back, not by the front, by the fucking side, like that, like some fucking wallet. This is my young Scot card, by the way, for everyone wondering. I get free bus travel all over Scotland until I'm 22 years old. Fuck you, England. Fuck my wallet. I've actually lost my wallet. I tried to take this thing out of my wallet so I could fucking do this funny bit, which wasn't even that good now that I think about it. Was it worth it? Was it worth losing my basketball wallet? Where's my wallet? I'm serious, guys. I don't know why I'm asking you, as though you have the answers. This is what I get for making fun of a military man, a legitimate military man. You lose your bastard wallet. He's coming and stolen this thing. I found it. It was in my radiator.
I was also in the military. I was an Air Force. I joined in. I was the youngest Air Force member to ever join.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, really?
I had one college degree as a communication association in applied sciences.
Holy guacamole, the youngest Air Force member ever. Santos is breaking new ground with that shit. He was just so revolutionary. Such a unit. The actual Air Force, the hard fucking bastards who put their lives on the line daily, just couldn't resist 17-year-old Santos from joining. But what about this lassie? On July 12, 1994, at the age of 11, Captain Katrina Mamor became the youngest person to fly an MiG-29 jet fighter and break the sound barrier with it. So according to Santos, it wasn't even 17-year-old him that got into the Air Force, it was 10-year-old him breaking the astounding record set by this lovely lady. I don't know about you guys, but I believe him wholeheartedly.
They told me I couldn't join it because I was too young.
Wait, so did you join or not join?
I ended up joining, I was in the Air Force. I was a terrorist.
No, why are you lying? Every time you're lying.
Oh, yeah, I joined it when I was 17.
You kind of play it.
You trying to play me because I don't have my comics on there? Oh, you guys on Zero TC? Zero TC?
No, that's cool.
Is it Zero TC?
Why would I be working having you're just posed next to a fucking tractor? That does not mean that you're working the tractor. Look guys, this is me next to a guitar, so why don't I be Jimi Hendrix now? Also, the ID literally says on it JROTC, which for those who don't know, well, I'll show you the website. Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps. The Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps is a program that prepares high school students for leadership roles while making them aware of their rights, responsibilities, and privileges as American citizens. So to put it into perspective, he was not a military man, he was a jumped-up Boy Scout who wore camo sometimes and stood next to tractors. That's like me calling myself a filmmaker for making commentary videos. I was in the Air Cadets when I was younger, which I suppose is the UK equivalent to the JROTC or whatever, and we had this thing called the 3822, which is so neat. For everyone who gets this reference, mate, you'll fucking love this. We had this thing called the 3822, which was like your Air Cadet ID thing. And one of the only good things about being in the Air Cadets, because by the way, mate, they took themselves so fucking seriously. It was almost comical looking back on it, how fucking stupid that shit was. But anyway, we had this 3822, which is like this shit fucking military ID thing, right? And the only use that we ever had for it was we got 20% off of Nando's by basically lying to them and saying that we had a real military ID. And none of them really gave enough of a shit to check whether or not it was real or not. I'm sure a lot of them knew that it wasn't real based on a bunch of 15-year-old kids going in and saying they're part of the military.
If you got like a chain of command, or there could be like in a military ID, they should show what branch you belong to, and then
well, it's because this one's blurry, it would have been on front. Yeah.
You guys want to see Santos cry because he lost everything apparently? That's sore from crying.
You look a bit like skinny Nippy Carter avocado in all those pictures. So yeah, as you can see by the real ID, that is very clearly just not a real military ID. As much as he likes to claim that it is.
So, and how did people even find out about that? Did you tell them or they just found out?
I don't tell nothing to nobody. I don't even show nothing. You're not a very, I'm medically, bro, chat. Whatever y'all say, I don't care. I don't have to prove to y'all. I've already shown y'all my medical records. I've already shown y'all my military discharge papers. I've shown y'all everything.
Really, you fucking do care. If you didn't care, why would you show everybody your medical records, your discharge papers, and your really shitty made ID? Also, it's not a real ID. You saying that it's a real ID is like saying the world's flat. You might as well be saying that 1 + 1 is 3. It just isn't a real ID. I'm sorry, pal. It's okay not to be part of the military. It's okay. It really is okay not to fight for the military at age 17. No one's going to judge you for it. Simmer down, settle pedal, there's nothing to be raging about, I'm telling you.
Do you consider yourself a good father? How frequently do you see your child?
As if he's going to sit there and go like, nah, I'm actually kind of shit. Like, I'm not being funny, but what are you expecting him to answer that question with? Yeah, the other day my baby was having a peanut allergy, so I went to grab the EpiPen and like help it out, but I accidentally injected peanut butter into her veins. So I'd say all in all, I mean well, but I'm a pretty shit father.
I consider myself
I guess you spent the whole day with Camilla, so you spent every day, you know the bullshit, you go up, well, you haven't spent the day with her, because mean. Spend the day with your daughter, or spend the day with Camilla from the Blockhouse. Pretty easy choice to make in my opinion. Also, the excuse of, I don't have to be in town rather than showing progress, that doesn't make any sense, because she lives in a house supposedly, right? You go right, it's a house, and you've not shown her. I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense, pal. That's literally the size of the house, and the house that is on the brink of exploding, because of just how big she is. You can go right, scream aloud, and make your money while still being with her. I'm assuming she has people living with her. She's not fucking this random baby in a gas that you visit every week to give food to. So whoever she lives with every day can say, look, I'm going to live stream right now and make money so I can feed this baby. I'm doing that to take care of her in this room or whatever. There's solutions to it. It's very obvious what bullshit it. See, you guys call me a bad father, but I can't be a bad father because I spent a little bit of time on the TikTok with a baby on married life from Upcycled. And that's important. If I play Bunny Hole by Loser, you know it's right for me to sit back. But I play married life from Up, and that means I'm a good father. Since you're making money talking bad about me and being my family, it means like I want to be your family, Santos. If I could pick whatever I wanted to be, Santos' family would be pretty well on that list. I mean, once again, filming a shit TikTok like this somehow counts as proof in your mind that you're a good caring father. I doubt you're actually a good caring present father. But you know what? I guess it really isn't my place to say, and I hope that you're a good caring father. I do hope that, and naturally, I will wait towards that. So I'm not going to make any outlandish or assertive statements on that front. Hopefully you're there for your daughter, and ultimately there's no way for us to know. I don't think that's what you happy. You know me. I'm not the one that I'm here. Oh man, I got excited to kind of crucifixion. Sorry. Hey, Richard's so scary. He's like a fucking. He's the Joker. I say that when he's actually Spider-Man. So you're proof now. Yes, you're very accessible. But this is not. I mean, I know how people crash up. Like, how did one acquire the number of the? You know, you do different things. Actually, that right there is fucking impressive. Maybe you're supposed to be inside. And I'm not a fucking judge, so I'm not here to say whether something is 100% true or not. That is not my place. I'm just throwing it out there. You guys can watch it if you want. You can get illusions.
It's all connected. If it was that serious, and I'm like, again, I'm not just dragging you. I've had my own problems in my life. I've had that. I have seen Monday.
Yeah, I feel like the world's against me right now. Like, I don't, like, you know, I mean, how could I prove myself with, how long is the legal to this happen?
That's what I'm saying.
In Mexico, I avoid getting, you know, they're making real life threats over there in Mexico. Over here in Mexico, I'm on Mexico, I'm on
Thank you for the gift, guys. Thank you for the gift.
Mexico with, and I say that
again, in the era that I was raised in, when you make those types of